In the deepest corners of our planet, beneath layers of time and earth, lie secrets that defy everything we think we know. Ancient ruins, lost civilizations, and artifacts, each discovery challenging our understanding of human history. What if our ancestors left behind clues to a past far more advanced than we ever imagined? What if the answers to our greatest mysteries are buried just out of sight, waiting to be uncovered? Join us as we journey into the unknown, exploring the ancient archaeological finds that might just rewrite the history books forever. The truth is closer than we think. Nestled in a quiet, rugged valley, the Dharamrajika stone platforms rise like silent sentinels, weathered by centuries yet strangely precise in their construction. From a distance, they appear almost unremarkable, flat expanses of stone laid in orderly patterns, some stretching tens of meters across, others segmented into rectangular or circular sections. But up close, the details emerge. Grooves carved into the rock, depressions that seem too deliberate to be random, and alignments that catch the light in unusual ways at sunrise and sunset. Every edge, every contour seems measured, as if guided by knowledge lost to time. Archaeologists have traced these platforms to a prehistoric period, long before written records appeared in this region. They suggest the stones may have been part of ritualistic or communal gatherings, spaces where early humans performed ceremonies, marked the seasons, or even mapped the stars. Carbon dating of nearby tools and remnants places human activity in this area at least several thousand years ago, though the exact purpose of the platforms remains uncertain. Yet, for all the conventional explanations, the Dharamrajika platforms carry an air of mystery that refuses to be fully explained. The precision of some cuts is astonishing. Certain stones fit together with tolerances that rival modern masonry. Some researchers point to astronomical alignments that echo solstices or lunar cycles, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics long before such knowledge was thought possible. Others note the unusual patterns of erosion. Some sections appear to have been deliberately smoothed or carved in ways that conventional weathering cannot fully account for. Speculative voices in the field ask deeper, more provocative questions. Could these platforms represent a form of prehistoric engineering lost to time? Were they markers of knowledge, ritual, or power? Some fringe theories even suggest that the constructions might be linked to forgotten technologies or symbolic systems we no longer understand. While mainstream archaeology emphasizes evidence and context, the physical presence of these platforms invites contemplation. How did ancient hands, with tools far simpler than ours, achieve such enduring precision? Walking among the Dharamrajika stones, it's impossible not to feel a quiet awe. The platforms themselves seem to hold a memory, a whisper from the past, waiting for someone to decode it. There are depressions worn smooth as if by repeated ritual, long straight lines that vanish into the surrounding landscape, as though they once connected to structures now lost, and patterns that suggest intentionality, yet resist easy interpretation. It is here, in this intersection of the known and the unknowable, that curiosity becomes almost tangible. We can trace pathways of human activity around the stones, imagine the footsteps of those who carved, placed, and walked upon them. Yet, with every answer, new questions arise. Why here, in this specific valley? What guided the choice of these particular rocks? Were the platforms purely functional, purely ceremonial, or something in between, a language of stone that we are only beginning to glimpse? Even as we study, measure, and theorize, the Dharamrajika platforms continue to guard their secrets. And so, standing amid these prehistoric stones, one is struck by a profound realization. The past is not always fully accessible. The platforms endure, silent and immovable, inviting us to wonder, not only about their purpose, but about the extent of human ingenuity in eras long before ours. What knowledge did those who came before possess, and how much of it has been lost to time? The questions linger, unresolved, and the Dharamrajika stone platforms remain an open invitation to continue seeking, imagining, and questioning. From the quiet valleys of Dharamrajika, our journey now carries us across the Mediterranean Sea to the windswept island of Minorca, where the Torre den Galmés Talaiotic complex rises from the rocky landscape like a testament to human ambition and ingenuity. Spread across a natural plateau, this sprawling prehistoric settlement is framed by dry stone walls that curve and spiral, enclosing structures both massive and intricate. From above, the arrangement of stone towers, circular dwellings, and passageways suggests careful planning, yet the logic behind it remains tantalizingly elusive. Every wall, every terrace, whispers stories of a people who lived millennia before our time, whose hands shaped stone in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Archaeologists date the Talaiotic culture here to between 1000 and 300 BCE, identifying Torre den Galmés as one of the largest and most complex settlements of its era. Excavations have revealed circular stone houses, communal spaces, and defensive towers, talaiots, that rise like silent sentinels, overlooking the surrounding plains. These structures suggest a society both organized and resourceful, capable of coordinating large-scale construction without the aid of modern technology. The precision of the stonework, the alignment of pathways, and the careful orientation of some structures hint at knowledge of astronomy, social hierarchy, or ritual practice. Yet beyond the conventional archaeological explanations, Torre den Galmés carries enigmas that continue to provoke curiosity. Certain towers are positioned on ridges that offer panoramic views, yet some appear to align with distant peaks or even celestial events, their purpose defying simple functional interpretation. Scholars debate whether these alignments were purely practical, designed for defense or surveillance, or whether they encoded symbolic or calendrical information now lost to time. The complexity of the site raises questions about engineering techniques. How did a society without metal tools or draft animals achieve such durable and carefully fitted stone construction? Some of the circular dwellings feature walls so perfectly curved that the construction seems almost effortless, a feat modern builders would struggle to replicate without careful measurement. There are aspects of Torre den Galmés that defy easy explanation. Certain stones show unusual wear patterns, as if subjected to repeated use or ritual activity, while narrow passageways and chambers suggest functions that remain speculative. Some researchers propose that the Talaiotic people may have had sophisticated knowledge of acoustics, using enclosed spaces for communication or ceremony in ways that modern experiments still struggle to reproduce. Others point to the scale of the settlement itself. How could a small, prehistoric population mobilize the labor and resources necessary to build such an extensive complex, with terraces, fortifications, and interconnected dwellings spread across uneven terrain? Speculative theories abound. Could Torre den Galmés represent more than a fortified village? Perhaps a hub of astronomical observation, spiritual activity, or social coordination? Might the arrangement of talaiots and circular homes encode information we no longer understand? A language of stone that communicated knowledge across generations? While mainstream archaeology emphasizes evidence and context, the physical presence of the site resists simple categorization. There is a sense that the Talaiotic builders left more than stone structures. They left a puzzle, a deliberate challenge to those who follow. Walking through the complex today, visitors encounter walls worn smooth by centuries, towers casting long shadows across sun-baked terraces, and narrow stairways that lead to vantage points overlooking the island's rugged landscape. The arrangement of stones encourages reflection. Why here on this plateau and not elsewhere? Why these specific angles, curves, and alignments? The human footprint is undeniable, yet the intentions behind it remain veiled, leaving space for wonder. Each step among the ruins feels like a dialogue across millennia, a quiet conversation between past and present, where answers remain just out of reach. Even as research continues, Torre dan Galmés resists final interpretation. Its architectural complexity, its subtle patterns, and its enduring presence evoke both admiration and curiosity. Could it be that we are glimpsing only a fraction of the knowledge and purpose embedded in these stones? And if so, what might still be hidden, waiting for a new generation of explorers to uncover, to decipher, and perhaps to experience as the Talaiotic people once did? The questions linger, unresolved, leaving the Talaiotic complex as a silent yet provocative reminder. The past is often far more intricate, far more mysterious, and far less fully understood than we imagine. From the windswept terraces of Minorca, our journey now turns to the heart of ancient Mesoamerica, to a city whose name still evokes awe and mystery: Teotihuacan. The sprawling metropolis, whose pyramids rise in perfect symmetry, has long captivated scholars and visitors alike. Yet beneath its monumental avenues and sun-bleached stones lies a secret few could have anticipated: a hidden network of tunnels filled with a substance as liquid as it is enigmatic: Mercury. The discovery, made beneath the temple of the Feathered Serpent, has raised questions that ripple far beyond conventional archaeology. Descending into these subterranean passages, one is struck immediately by the surreal scene. Pools of silvery liquid, reflective and unyielding, sitting in channels carved with meticulous precision. The tunnels themselves are narrow, low, and labyrinthine, demanding careful navigation. The walls are composed of smooth stone, sculpted to hold the mercury in place, suggesting that its presence was intentional, not accidental. The sheer volume is staggering. Estimates suggest hundreds of gallons of the liquid metal were contained here, an achievement of engineering that is astonishing even by modern standards. Archaeologists trace Teotihuacan's origins to roughly 100 BCE, flourishing until the 7th century CE. The city was home to tens of thousands of people and is renowned for its monumental architecture: the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Grand Avenue of the Dead. Excavations over decades have revealed evidence of sophisticated urban planning, complex religious practices, and extensive trade networks. Yet the tunnels beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent introduce a layer of mystery that even the most detailed surveys struggle to explain. Mercury, after all, is a hazardous and difficult substance to manipulate. Why would the inhabitants of Teotihuacan go to such extraordinary lengths to acquire, transport, and contain it? Mainstream theories suggest a symbolic purpose. Mercury may have represented rivers, lakes, or the underworld itself, an earthly mirror of celestial or spiritual beliefs. In this interpretation, the tunnels and pools would have served as ritual spaces, designed to awe or to connect with forces beyond the human realm. There is precedent for symbolic use of rare substances in Mesoamerican cultures, yet the scale at Teotihuacan is exceptional. The logistical challenge alone, transporting mercury over considerable distances from its source, implies a deliberate, organized effort, indicating a level of societal coordination and technological capability that continues to intrigue researchers. Yet the story does not end with symbolism. The physical properties of mercury present another puzzle entirely. Its density, reflectivity, and toxicity make it difficult to contain safely, even with modern knowledge. The Teotihuacanos must have possessed a practical understanding of its behavior, perhaps developing methods now lost to time. Some experimental archaeologists have attempted to replicate the tunnel's construction and filling, yet none have fully succeeded without modern tools. How could a civilization without contemporary containment technology manage such a task? What knowledge guided them, and for what purpose? Speculative theories expand the enigma further. Could the Mercury have had a functional role, perhaps in alchemical or protochemical processes now forgotten? Some have suggested it may have been linked to astronomical observation, reflecting light in ways that aligned with solstices or celestial events. Others propose more metaphysical interpretations, that the tunnels represented a literal and symbolic entrance to the underworld, their reflective surfaces meant to evoke a cosmic river separating the living from the divine. While these ideas remain unverified, the very existence of the tunnels invites questions that challenge conventional assumptions about Teotihuacan's sophistication. Entering the mercury-filled passages today, researchers describe an uncanny sense of awe. The liquid gleams in the torchlight, creating an almost otherworldly atmosphere. The smell of the stone, the echo of footsteps, and the shimmering surface combine to produce an effect that feels simultaneously natural and impossible. Every curve of the channel, every pool of the silvery metal suggests deliberate design. But design for what purpose? Scholars continue to debate whether the tunnels were ceremonial, symbolic, or functional, yet no consensus has emerged. Even the most meticulous mapping and chemical analysis leaves room for wonder. The tunnels also pose a logistical and ethical challenge. Mercury is highly toxic, and prolonged exposure can be dangerous, meaning that even modern exploration is limited. The risk adds a layer of mystery. Perhaps the tunnels were meant to be entered only rarely, reserved for elite priests, rulers, or shamans. Their inaccessibility may have been intentional, enhancing the aura of sacredness and secrecy. If so, the tunnels were not merely architectural feats. They were carefully controlled experiences, a way of connecting a select few to forces or knowledge beyond ordinary reach. Questions proliferate. How was the mercury transported to the city in such large quantities? What tools and techniques enabled the careful sculpting and containment of the metal? Was the purpose symbolic, functional, or both? And most tantalizing of all, what knowledge guided the Teotihuacanos? Knowledge that seems, in many ways, impossible to fully replicate today. The tunnels beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent offer no answers, only the reflective surface of possibility, mirroring both our fascination and our limitations. As we step back from the tunnels and emerge into the sunlit city above, the contrast is striking. On the surface, Teotihuacan is orderly and monumental, a testament to human planning and creativity. Below, the mercury flows, enigmatic and untamed, a reminder that beneath even the most studied civilizations lie mysteries that defy full understanding. The liquid gleams in memory, a silver thread connecting the past and present, urging us to wonder not only about the world the Teotihuacanos built, but about the knowledge and purpose that may have slipped through the cracks of time. What secrets remain hidden in those subterranean channels, and will they ever be fully understood? The tunnels invite us to keep asking, to keep imagining, and to accept that some mysteries endure, shimmering just out of reach. From the hidden depths of Teotihuacan's mercury tunnels, our journey now travels across continents and millennia to the Indus Valley, where the ancient city of Harappa rises from the alluvial plains of what is now Pakistan. Here, in a landscape once crisscrossed by the waters of the Indus River, lie vast brick structures whose size and precision continue to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. Among them, the granaries of Harappa stand out, monumental, methodically arranged, and strangely enigmatic. At first glance, they resemble nothing more than storage buildings, their raised platforms and uniform compartments evoking a civilization concerned with sustenance and trade. Yet closer inspection reveals an intelligence of design that raises questions far beyond simple practicality. The Harappan civilization, flourishing around 2600 to 1900 BCE, is celebrated for its advanced urban planning, grid-like streets, and sophisticated drainage systems. The granaries themselves are remarkable examples of architectural foresight. Massive brick platforms, often several meters high, were divided into uniform chambers, each accessible by carefully constructed passageways. The layout suggests careful planning, allowing for both storage and ventilation, critical considerations for preserving grains in a region prone to monsoon humidity. Some granaries were aligned along the main streets of the city, others positioned to take advantage of prevailing winds, hinting at an understanding of environmental factors that was sophisticated for its time. Conventional archaeology posits that these granaries served practical purposes, storing surplus grain to feed urban populations, supporting trade networks, or perhaps maintaining reserves in times of scarcity. This interpretation aligns with evidence of a complex economy, standardized weights, and seals used in trade. Yet despite these practical explanations, the scale and precision of the granaries remain puzzling. Some structures are far larger than any known contemporaneous storage facility, their bricks laid with exacting uniformity, and the mortar or binding techniques suggest a level of consistency rarely seen even in later periods. How did a civilization without modern lifting tools or standardized machinery coordinate such massive construction? How did they ensure uniform ventilation and preservation over such expansive spaces? Further intrigue arises from the granary's design relative to the rest of the city. Access was controlled, with some compartments appearing deliberately isolated. Could these have been reserved for special stores, perhaps for religious purposes, ceremonial offerings, or even as strategic reserves in times of conflict? Archaeologists have also noted features that suggest temperature regulation, yet the precise methods remain speculative. Some chambers exhibit slightly raised floors or perforated bricks, measures that may have been intended to reduce moisture or pests. While the logic seems sound, the uniformity and foresight of these solutions raise questions about the Harappans' understanding of material science and environmental engineering, a knowledge that seems advanced for any civilization of that era. Speculative interpretations extend the mystery further. Some researchers suggest the granaries may have held more than grain. Could certain chambers have stored ritual substances, rare commodities, or symbolic objects, their design intended to preserve secrecy and purity? Others have proposed that the uniformity of these massive storage complexes reflects a social or political control mechanism, a way to manage and monitor resources within an urban population numbering in the tens of thousands. Unlike other ancient civilizations, where monumental architecture often serves a primarily ceremonial or elite function, the Harappan granaries suggest a society that balanced practical needs with subtle, sophisticated organization, yet left almost no written explanation. Exploring the granaries today, visitors are struck by the meticulous regularity of the brickwork. The raised platforms, some stretching over dozens of meters, create a rhythmic pattern across the landscape. Narrow passages between chambers invite reflection. Why this precise spacing, these particular angles, these specific materials? What knowledge guided the builders, and why is so little of it recorded for posterity? Even the largest surviving granaries leave gaps in our understanding, suggesting that we are glimpsing only fragments of a much larger system. The Harappan granaries also pose logistical questions that continue to intrigue researchers. How did a society coordinate the collection, transportation, and storage of grain on such a vast scale? How did they achieve uniformity in brick size, mortar consistency, and chamber construction without standardized machinery? Could there have been techniques, now lost, that allowed them to work with unprecedented precision? And if so, what other skills or knowledge might have existed in the wider civilization that has vanished almost entirely from the historical record? Walking among the towering platforms, one senses the presence of deliberate intelligence at every level. The uniform chambers, the alignment with streets, the integration with the city's drainage systems, they all speak of careful observation and meticulous planning. Yet, with all their sophistication, the granaries reveal little about the people themselves, their rituals, their governance, their intentions. Like the Mercury tunnels beneath Teotihuacan, they embody a fusion of human ingenuity and mystery, a tangible imprint of a civilization whose complexity challenges modern assumptions. And so, as we step back to observe the Harappa Granaries from above, we are confronted by the paradox that defines much of the ancient world: monumental achievements, precise planning, and enduring structures that leave us in awe, yet little else. What drove the Harappans to such exacting methods of construction? Were the granaries purely functional, or did they hold symbolic, social, or even ceremonial significance beyond our understanding? The questions linger, unresolved, echoing across millennia, inviting us to imagine the knowledge, the hands, and the vision that produced these extraordinary spaces. In the silent alignment of bricks and the measured rhythm of chambers, we glimpse a civilization both familiar and unknowable, a reminder that some mysteries, like the grain stored in these ancient halls, endure beyond the reach of time. From the meticulously organized granaries of Harappa, our journey now returns to the Mediterranean, to the windswept island of Gozo, where a series of prehistoric structures known as the Tal-Qadi Temples rise quietly from the rocky terrain. Nestled among limestone cliffs and undulating fields, these temples are modest in scale compared to the grand pyramids of Teotihuacan or the sprawling streets of Harappa. Yet their subtle complexity immediately commands attention. The walls, composed of carefully fitted megaliths, form chambers and corridors that defy simple explanation. At first glance, they appear straightforward, but as sunlight shifts across the stone surfaces, subtle alignments and carvings hint at a design far more deliberate than mere shelter or gathering space. Archaeologists date the Tal-Qadi complex to Malta's Gantia and Tarxian periods, roughly between 3,600 and 2,500 BCE, situating them among the oldest known temples in the world. The structures are characterized by apsidal chambers, interconnected corridors, and stone platforms, many of which bear traces of carvings or reliefs, worn smooth by centuries of exposure. Excavations have revealed pottery fragments, figurines, and ceremonial tools, suggesting ritual activity rather than domestic use. Yet even with these finds, the temples leave crucial questions unanswered. Why were they built with such precision, and how did the builders achieve this without advanced technology or standardized instruments? Mainstream interpretations posit that the Tal-Qadi temples were centers of worship, spaces where early Maltese communities conducted ceremonies tied to fertility, seasonal cycles, or the veneration of deities. The apsidal chambers, often arranged in a radial pattern, may have facilitated communal gatherings or processional rituals. Some researchers suggest that the stone platforms served as altars, while the alignment of certain entrances hints at solar or lunar observations. Yet for all the conventional explanations, the temples retain an aura of mystery. The sheer weight and arrangement of the stones, some of them massive megaliths, pose a challenge to our understanding of prehistoric engineering. How were these structures lifted, positioned, and fitted with such precision, using only rudimentary tools? Further intrigue arises from subtle architectural features. Certain walls curve in ways that suggest intentional acoustic effects, amplifying sound in specific chambers while leaving others strangely silent. Could these spaces have been designed to enhance ritual or auditory experience, creating effects that modern builders might struggle to replicate? Others note unusual patterns of wear on the floors and stone surfaces, as if they were used repeatedly for ceremonies whose details are lost to history. The symmetry of the temples, the careful orientation of entrances, and the deliberate placement of certain stones suggest knowledge of geometry and environmental observation that seems advanced for a society without written records. Speculative theories extend the enigma even further. Some propose that the temple's orientations and alignments may correspond to celestial events, serving as early observatories for tracking solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles. Others suggest that the structures could encode symbolic or ritual knowledge, a language of stone intended to communicate spiritual or astronomical concepts across generations. There is also the question of social coordination. Constructing such temples would have required organized labor, planning, and resources, implying a society capable of complex administration long before such systems were thought possible in this region. Exploring Tal-Qadi today, one is struck by the intimacy of the space. Narrow corridors lead from chamber to chamber, each stone smoothed and positioned with deliberate intent. Sunlight filters through openings, casting patterns across floors and walls that shift throughout the day, suggesting awareness of natural light and its effects. The megaliths, some weighing several tons, remain immovable, silent witnesses to rituals we can only imagine. Walking among them, it is easy to sense that these structures were more than simple temples. They were carefully crafted experiences, spaces designed to connect the human with the sacred, the ordinary with the extraordinary. The mysteries of Tal-Qadi are compounded by what is not found. Unlike later civilizations, the temples contain no written records, no inscriptions explaining purpose or process. The materials, while durable, leave little trace of the techniques used to manipulate them. And yet, the structures endure, embodying a level of planning, precision, and intent that modern researchers continue to study, replicate, and marvel at. How did prehistoric builders achieve such feats, and why have so few details survived? Could there have been knowledge, now lost, that allowed them to manipulate massive stones with ease, to plan complex layouts, and to harmonize architecture with ritual, astronomy, or social organization? As we step back and observe the Tal-Qadi temples in their landscape, the contrast between their size and the depth of thought behind them becomes apparent. Though modest compared to other ancient wonders, their subtlety magnifies their intrigue. They invite us to consider the ingenuity of human societies long before the advent of writing, metallurgy, or complex machinery. Every chamber, every carefully placed stone, prompts reflection on what has been preserved and what may forever remain hidden. And so, as the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the apses and platforms, we are left with the quiet, enduring questions of Tal-Qadi. What ceremonies took place here? What knowledge guided these builders? And how much of their skill and understanding has been lost to time? The stones stand resolute, unmoving yet eloquent, offering only glimpses into a world that remains just beyond our grasp. In their silence, they challenge us to imagine, to inquire, and to wonder what else might be concealed within these ancient halls of stone. From the limestone corridors of Tal-Qadi, where prehistoric builders shaped stone to channel sunlight and sound, our journey now moves to the verdant highlands of Tonga in the South Pacific. Here, atop a gently rolling plateau, stands the Ha'amanga of Maui, a massive trilithon whose weight, scale, and purpose have inspired wonder for centuries. 3 enormous coral limestone slabs, each carefully positioned, form a structure that resembles the doorway of a lost civilization. 2 vertical pillars, each over 5 meters tall, support a horizontal lintel weighing several tons, balanced with precision that challenges our understanding of prehistoric engineering. The monument rises against the sky like a sentinel, an enduring symbol of human ingenuity and of mystery. Archaeologists date the Ha'amanga of Maui to around the 13th century CE, during the reign of King Tuituitatui of Tonga, a period noted for centralized authority and monumental construction. The site is traditionally associated with royal power, serving as part of an ancient complex that includes the nearby royal tombs of Uluwakimata II. Its construction demonstrates a mastery of megalithic techniques, echoing traditions found across the Pacific and beyond. Yet despite its apparent simplicity, the Trilithon raises questions that remain unresolved. How were the massive stones quarried, transported, and positioned without modern machinery? What tools, knowledge, and coordination allowed a society of relatively modest technological means to achieve such a feat? Conventional explanations often emphasize symbolism and social function. Some historians suggest that the Trilithon served as a gateway, marking the entrance to royal or sacred spaces. Others propose that it functioned as a ceremonial monument, a site for rituals or gatherings that reinforced the authority of the Tongan kings. Yet the precision with which the stones are aligned, the careful balance of the horizontal lintel atop the vertical pillars, and the enduring stability of the structure point to a technical skill that transcends mere ritual purpose. This is not simply a symbolic gesture. It is an engineering accomplishment designed to last, resilient against centuries of wind, rain, and seismic activity. Intriguingly, some researchers have noted that the ha'amanga, a Maui, may have an astronomical function. The alignment of the Trilithon appears to correspond with the rising sun during the solstices, hinting at knowledge of celestial cycles. Could this ancient monument have served as a calendar, a way to track the changing seasons for agricultural or ceremonial purposes? If so, the builders of Ha'amanga, a Maui, demonstrated not only technical expertise, but also a sophisticated understanding of the natural world. Yet, questions remain. How did they achieve such accuracy without modern surveying instruments? And why choose this particular plateau, isolated yet commanding, for such an installation? Speculative interpretations deepen the intrigue. Some propose that the Trilithon may have encoded symbolic or spiritual knowledge, representing the union of earth and sky, the balance of power, or the passage between realms. Others suggest that it may have functioned as a marker for territorial or societal boundaries, an enduring statement of authority visible from a distance. The simplicity of its form contrasts with the complexity of its potential purpose, a duality that continues to fascinate both scholars and visitors alike. Unlike written records or inscriptions, the monument communicates through proportion, alignment, and placement, a silent language of stone. Visiting Ha'amanga, a Maui today, one is immediately struck by the scale and precision of the structure. The vertical pillars rise effortlessly, their surfaces worn smooth by wind and time, while the horizontal lintel seems to float above them, defying the limits of prehistoric construction. Standing beneath the Trilithon, one senses both the weight of the stones and the weight of history, the presence of builders who understood force, balance, and proportion in ways we can only begin to imagine. The surrounding landscape enhances the sense of intentionality. Gentle slopes, distant mountains, and the open sky create a natural stage for a monument that is both practical and profound. Yet, for all its majesty, the Ha'amanga, a Maui, also challenges comprehension. How did a society without cranes or pulleys achieve such precision in placement? Were their techniques now lost to time? Methods passed down through generations that relied on knowledge we cannot fully replicate? Could the monument have contained additional functions, astronomical, ceremonial, or social, that remain invisible to modern observation? Every angle, every shadow, every alignment suggests intention, yet the full meaning continues to elude us. The enduring power of Ha'amanga, a Maui, lies not only in its physical presence, but in its invitation to wonder. It reminds us that human ingenuity is not bound by the tools of a particular era. Knowledge can manifest in stone, proportion, and alignment, preserved for centuries as a testament to skill and vision. Like the Tal-Qadi Temples, the Ha'amanga, a Maui, bridges the practical and the symbolic, the known and the unknowable, leaving us to imagine the minds that conceived it and the hands that shaped it. As we step back from the Trilithon, the Tongan sun illuminating its coral surfaces, we are left with the questions that define the monument. What inspired its construction? What knowledge guided its builders? And what purpose, practical, symbolic, or both, did it truly serve? The Ha'amanga. A Maui stands not only as a relic of the past, but as a challenge to the present. To understand, to replicate, and perhaps most importantly, to wonder. Its silent presence reminds us that some achievements, though tangible and enduring, remain just beyond our ability to fully comprehend. In this balance of stone, sky, and human ambition, the mysteries of Ha'amanga, a Maui endure, waiting for those willing to observe, question, and imagine what lies behind the Trilithon's enduring frame. From the coral stones of Ha'amanga, a Maui, where massive trilithons have stood for centuries as silent witnesses to human ingenuity, our journey returns once more to the Maltese archipelago. Here, on the northern tip of the island of Malta, the prehistoric site of Skorba emerges from low hills and cultivated fields, its unassuming megaliths guarding stories that stretch back over 5 millennia. Unlike grand temples or monumental gateways, Skorba is deceptively modest in scale, yet the intricacy of its layout, the deliberate arrangement of stones, and the subtle stratigraphy beneath the surface hint at a sophistication that continues to elude full understanding. Walking among these ruins, one senses a place of careful intention, where human hands and minds sought to shape space, ritual, and perhaps even time itself. Archaeologists date Skorba to the Gantia phase, around 3,600 to 3,200 BCE, making it one of the earliest known temple complexes in Malta. Excavations have revealed layers of habitation, stone foundations, and carefully constructed altars, suggesting a continuity of ritual practice and social organization over generations. The site includes apsidal chambers, small platforms, and evidence of complex floor plans, many of which are aligned with astonishing precision. Pottery fragments, figurines, and other artifacts attest to ceremonial activity, while layers of stratified debris indicate repeated construction and renovation. Yet even with these discoveries, the purpose and full function of Skorba remain shrouded in mystery. Conventional interpretations focus on the ceremonial role of the site. Scholars suggest that Skorba functioned as a place of worship, a space for communal rites, or an early center for social cohesion. Some apses and chambers may have served as altars for offerings, while others may have facilitated ritual movement, processions, or gatherings tied to seasonal cycles. Evidence of hearths and fire pits hints at purification or sacrificial practices. Yet the precision of the construction, the alignment of certain walls, and the layering of the stones suggest a knowledge of planning, geometry, and construction that seems advanced for a Neolithic community. How did the builders coordinate such a layout without written records, advanced tools, or standardized measurements? One of Skorba's most intriguing features is its stratified chronology. Archaeologists have identified multiple phases of building and rebuilding, with earlier foundations carefully integrated into subsequent layers. This suggests that the site was not static, but evolved over time, reflecting both continuity and adaptation. Could this indicate a sustained religious or social tradition, one that required knowledge to be passed down through generations? And if so, how much of that knowledge has been lost, leaving behind only the silent architecture of stone and earth? The layering itself becomes a kind of puzzle. The alignment of chambers, the positioning of platforms, the subtle variation in stone sizes, all hint at a deliberate intelligence now obscured by millennia. Speculative interpretations deepen the intrigue. Some researchers suggest that Skorba may have had astronomical significance, with certain chambers or openings aligned to track solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events. Others propose that the site may have served as a proto-calendar, a physical manifestation of temporal knowledge encoded in stone. Still others consider the possibility that Skorba was a symbolic map of the surrounding landscape, or even a stage for ritual enactments that communicated social or spiritual hierarchies. While these hypotheses remain unverified, the enduring physical evidence compels us to ask questions about the cognitive, technical, and cultural capabilities of its builders. Walking among the site today, the subtlety of Skorba becomes apparent. Unlike more imposing megalithic structures, the stones here are smaller, but no less deliberate. The apses curve gently, the platforms are meticulously leveled, and the passageways guide the visitor through space in a manner that suggests intentional design. Sunlight falls differently in each chamber throughout the day, casting shadows that might have been part of the original experience. The site invites contemplation, encouraging observers to imagine the ceremonies, gatherings, and knowledge that once imbued the stones with life. The logistical questions also remain striking. How were the stones quarried, transported, and positioned with such precision using only the simple tools of the Neolithic era? How did the builders achieve stability and durability, ensuring that the structures would endure thousands of years? Could there have been techniques, now lost, that allowed for accuracy in leveling, alignment, and spatial organization? These questions echo those posed by other megalithic sites across the globe, from the Ha'amanga a Maui Trilithon to the Tal-Qadi Temples, suggesting a recurring pattern. Prehistoric societies consistently achieved feats of construction and planning that challenge modern assumptions about technological limitations. Even as we step back from the ruins, the questions linger. Skorba's stones do not speak in words, but they communicate through proportion, alignment, and placement, a language we can glimpse but never fully translate. Was this site purely ceremonial, or did it serve multiple functions, blending the practical, the social, and the spiritual? What knowledge guided the hands that placed each stone, and what understanding of space, time, or celestial cycles might they have possessed? The site's quiet presence, modest yet deliberate, invites reflection on the ingenuity and vision of its builders. In the end, Skorba challenges our assumptions about what early human societies could achieve. Its apses, platforms, and stratified layers stand as enduring evidence of deliberate design, sophisticated planning, and perhaps even a lost understanding of the world. And yet, like Ha'amanga a Maui before it, and Tal-Qadi or Harappa before that, the site resists full comprehension. What secrets remain hidden beneath its stone floors? What knowledge, carefully encoded in alignment, proportion, and spatial rhythm, has slipped through the millennia? In the quiet of Skorba, the past whispers its enduring mysteries, inviting us to observe, question, and imagine what else might lie just beyond our understanding. From the quiet, ritual chambers of Skorba, where Neolithic communities left subtle yet deliberate traces of belief and social organization, our journey now turns to the misty hills of ancient Gaul, where vast hill forts crown the landscape, overlooking forests, rivers, and valleys below. Rising from grassy slopes, these fortifications appear at first as simple embankments or clusters of stones, yet closer inspection reveals complexity, scale, and an architectural precision that continues to perplex archaeologists. Some are perched atop craggy ridges, commanding panoramic views, while others occupy more subtle elevations, integrated seamlessly into the natural contours of the terrain. Each site carries the silent imprint of human planning, labor, and intention, an enduring testament to societies whose knowledge and capabilities we are only beginning to appreciate. Gallic Hillforts, or oppida, emerged prominently between the late Iron Age and the early Roman period, roughly between 500 BCE and 50 CE. They served as centers of habitation, trade, and defense for Celtic tribes across what is now France, Belgium, and parts of Germany. Archaeological surveys reveal massive ramparts, deep ditches, and intricately constructed gateways, often complemented by interior streets, plazas, and communal areas. Some oppida cover dozens, even hundreds of hectares, suggesting highly organized communities with sophisticated social hierarchies and logistical capacity. Yet despite the wealth of material evidence, the exact methods used to design, coordinate, and construct these fortifications remain partially unexplained. How did these communities move and place such enormous stones with the technology available to them? How did they achieve the remarkable alignment and stability of ramparts that still endure after 2 millennia? Mainstream scholarship emphasizes their defensive role. Hill forts provided vantage points over the surrounding countryside, allowing communities to monitor approaching threats and control strategic trade routes. The massive earthworks and stone walls were undoubtedly formidable obstacles, designed to protect inhabitants from rival tribes or later Roman incursions. Yet many aspects of the oppida challenge purely practical explanations. Some sites exhibit gateways and ramparts arranged with unusual symmetry, suggesting not only functionality, but aesthetic or symbolic considerations. Certain alignments may correspond to solar, lunar, or seasonal events, hinting at an awareness of celestial cycles that goes beyond the immediate demands of defense. Further intrigue arises from the interior structures of the hill forts. Archaeologists have identified evidence of workshops, storage areas, and what appear to be communal gathering spaces. Some oppida include foundations that indicate multi-story constructions or terraced layouts, while other zones suggest religious or ceremonial use. Yet, much of this organization remains speculative. The absence of written records from many of these communities leaves us with questions about social dynamics, leadership, and cultural practices. How did Gallic societies coordinate labor, organize complex layouts, and maintain these fortifications across generations, all without extensive documentation? Could there have been standardized techniques or knowledge that allowed for construction far more precise than modern observers can easily replicate? Speculative theories deepen the mystery further. Some researchers suggest that certain hill forts functioned as observatories or symbolic markers, integrating the natural landscape with astronomical and ritual purposes. Others propose that the construction of such massive fortifications may have reflected social or spiritual hierarchies, with walls and gateways serving as physical representations of power, prestige, or cosmic order. The repetition of certain patterns, circular enclosures, concentric walls, and straight causeways across multiple oppida hints at knowledge shared across vast regions, knowledge that may have been transmitted orally or through apprenticeship rather than formal documentation. Walking among the remnants of these hill forts today, the scale and precision are immediately apparent. Ramparts rise in imposing layers of earth and stone, their dimensions suggesting careful measurement and long-term planning. From certain vantage points, the arrangement of walls, gates, and terraces evokes an almost deliberate rhythm, a harmony between natural terrain and human intervention. The complexity of these sites forces reflection. What drove their construction beyond the obvious practicalities of defense? How much of their design was functional, how much symbolic, and how much purpose remains hidden entirely from modern comprehension? The logistical challenges are equally striking. Moving large stones, leveling terraces, and constructing walls that have survived 2 millennia would have required sophisticated understanding of mechanics, coordination of large labor forces, and planning over extended periods. How did Gallic communities achieve such feats with simple tools, limited draft animals, and without standardized measurement systems? Could there have been now lost techniques that allowed for accuracy in alignment, weight distribution, and structural stability? And if so, what other knowledge, astronomical, ritual, or administrative, might have been encoded in the very layout of these fortifications. Even after centuries of study, the Hillforts of Gaul retain an aura of quiet mystery. They are monuments to human ingenuity, resilience, and organization, yet they reveal only glimpses of the society that built them. Their enduring presence challenges assumptions about the limits of pre-Roman civilizations and underscores the skill, foresight, and cultural sophistication required to achieve such feats. How much remains obscured beneath the ramparts, buried in layers of earth and history? What knowledge guided their construction, and what subtle messages might these communities have encoded in the very design of their fortifications? As we observe these ancient ramparts from above, the mist rolling over the hills, one cannot help but sense the deliberate intelligence embedded in their construction. The walls, the gates, the terraces, they speak of planning, purpose, and perhaps even a worldview now lost to time. The Gallic Hillforts endure as silent witnesses to human ingenuity, inviting us to ask the questions that have persisted for centuries. What inspired their builders? What knowledge guided them? And what secrets still lie hidden among the stones and ditches of these remarkable sites? In their enduring form, the Oppida remind us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved fully, but to inspire reflection, curiosity, and awe. From the misty ramparts of Gaul, where ancient tribes carved their presence into hilltops with precision and foresight, our journey moves eastward, across deserts and mountains, to the northern reaches of Saudi Arabia. Here lies Al-Rajajil, a field of upright stones stretching across the flat sands near Sakaka. At first glance, the site appears as a simple geometric scattering of megaliths, tall, slender stones standing erect like silent sentinels in the desert. Yet as one moves closer, patterns emerge. The stones are arranged in rows, circles, and rectangles, with some formations aligned with remarkable regularity. The subtlety of their placement, coupled with their endurance over millennia, hints at knowledge, intention, and purpose that we are only beginning to comprehend. Archaeologists estimate the stones of Al-Rajajil were erected between 4000 and 3000 BCE, placing them firmly within the late Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods. Despite their age, the site retains a striking sense of order. Some stones reach nearly 4 meters in height, others are shorter, yet the spacing between them seems deliberate. Surveys reveal rows extending for hundreds of meters, occasionally forming angular corners or intersecting with other alignments. While no inscriptions or artifacts directly tie the site to a specific civilization, evidence of nearby settlements suggests that Al-Rajajil was not isolated, but part of a larger cultural landscape. Mainstream interpretations often suggest practical or ceremonial purposes. Some researchers propose that the stones functioned as territorial markers, delineating boundaries across an otherwise open landscape. Others suggest astronomical or calendrical functions, noting that certain rows appear to align with solar or lunar events, such as solstices or equinoxes. Yet despite these plausible explanations, much about the site remains enigmatic. How did communities without metal tools or wheeled transport move, erect, and precisely arrange such massive stones? What motivated them to invest so much labor into patterns whose meaning is now lost? Further intrigue arises from the sheer scale and repetition of the formations. While individual stones could conceivably have served practical or symbolic purposes, the regularity of rows and alignments suggests a level of planning that borders on architectural sophistication. Could the site have served multiple functions simultaneously? A ceremonial center, an observatory, and a communal marker of social cohesion? Some formations resemble proto-grids, implying a knowledge of geometry and measurement, yet the techniques used to achieve such regularity remain unknown. How was spacing calculated over hundreds of meters with such consistency, without written records or standard units? speculative interpretations deepen the mystery. Some observers propose that Al-Rajajil may have functioned as a prehistoric ritual landscape, a place where the stones marked pathways, sacred enclosures, or sites of communal rites. Others suggest a possible astronomical dimension. Certain alignments may have tracked the sun or stars, serving as a calendar or signaling key moments for agricultural or ceremonial cycles. More unconventional hypotheses even propose that the site encodes symbolic or cosmic knowledge, a physical language inscribed in stone rather than words. While such ideas remain unverified, they reflect the compelling sense that Al-Rajajil was designed with both practical and metaphysical considerations in mind. Visiting Al-Rajajil today, the desert stretches endlessly, the stones casting long shadows across sand and scrub. Walking among them, one cannot help but notice how the human hand has shaped and structured the landscape with intention. Each stone stands in conversation with its neighbors, forming lines, angles, and spaces that suggest deliberate patterning. There is a rhythm to the site, a measured cadence that echoes across centuries, quietly commanding attention, inviting reflection, and compelling us to consider the cognitive sophistication of its builders. The logistical questions remain striking. How did Neolithic peoples transport stones that weigh hundreds of kilograms, sometimes over rough terrain, and position them with such precision? How did they coordinate labor for a project that may have spanned decades, if not centuries? Could they have possessed surveying techniques, geometric knowledge, or observational skills that allowed them to achieve alignments beyond what we might assume for the era? And if so, what other knowledge, social, spiritual, or astronomical, might have been encoded in these desert stones waiting for interpretation across millennia? Even with extensive study, Al-Rajajil retains an aura of mystery. Unlike more famous megalithic sites, it is sparsely documented, offering little in the way of inscriptions or artifacts to clarify its purpose. The stones themselves speak through their size, placement, and alignment, yet their message is enigmatic, open-ended, and profoundly intriguing. What drove the builders to arrange them with such meticulous attention? Was the primary aim ceremonial, territorial, astronomical, or symbolic, or some combination of all three? And perhaps most importantly, what knowledge, carefully encoded in stone, has been lost over the centuries, leaving only the skeletal framework of this extraordinary landscape? As the sun dips toward the horizon, the shadows of the standing stones stretch long across the sands, emphasizing both their permanence and their mystery. Al-Rajajil does not answer the questions it raises. It poses them silently, eloquently, and without end. Like the Gallic Hillforts before it, the Ha'amonga, a Maui Trilithon, or the temples of Tal-Qadi, it reminds us that human ingenuity often leaves traces that defy replication, knowledge that surpasses what we might expect, and mysteries that endure beyond written history. In the quiet geometry of Al-Rajajil, we are invited to wonder, what other stories lie hidden in the desert, encoded in stone, awaiting those patient enough to observe, question, and imagine what remains just beyond our understanding? From the solitary stones of Al-Rajajil, where desert winds whisper across rows of enigmatic megaliths, our journey now turns to the rugged highlands of the Caucasus, to the remote slopes of Georgia. Here, perched on steep cliffs and hidden within jagged ridges, stands the Shaori Fortress, a complex of dry stone walls and terraced structures that defy simple explanation. From a distance, the ruins appear almost as natural extensions of the mountains themselves, blending so seamlessly with the landscape that it is easy to imagine them rising without human intervention. Yet, as one approaches, the scale, precision, and audacity of the construction become unmistakable. Walls, hundreds of meters long, chambers carefully arranged, and terraces that hug the contours of sheer cliffs, suggesting both strategic purpose and extraordinary skill. Shaori Fortress belongs to a broader category of megalithic complexes scattered across the Caucasus, some dating as far back as the 2nd millennium BCE. The structures are built from massive basalt blocks, some weighing several tons, fitted together without mortar. The walls rise with a remarkable stability, resisting centuries of erosion, frost, and seismic activity. Excavations have revealed terraces, fortified enclosures, and narrow passageways, all designed with meticulous attention to topography. Despite the fortress's imposing appearance, much about its purpose and construction remains unresolved, and it stands as one of the most puzzling examples of prehistoric engineering in the region. Mainstream archaeology often interprets Shaori as a defensive site. Its elevated location provides commanding views of the surrounding valleys, allowing inhabitants to monitor movement across wide areas. The massive walls, coupled with strategically placed gates and narrow entryways, suggest fortification against potential invaders. Yet practical explanations alone fail to account for certain features. Many terraces appear purely ceremonial or observational rather than strictly functional, and the precision with which some of the stones are fitted hints at techniques beyond what one would expect for the era. How did builders manage to transport and position multi-ton stones along steep, inaccessible slopes? How did they coordinate construction without written plans, cranes, or modern machinery? Further intrigue emerges when examining the fortress's layout. Some sections form nearly perfect geometric alignments, while others are curved or angled to follow the contours of the cliffs. There is evidence that certain walls may have functioned to manipulate acoustics or sightlines, creating spaces where sound carries unusually well, or where distant objects can be observed from specific vantage points. Could these features have had ceremonial significance, enhancing the experience of rituals or communication? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been lost to time, leaving only the stones themselves as evidence of human intent? The sheer scale of Shaori Fortress raises additional questions. The amount of labor required to quarry, transport, and precisely place basalt blocks across such challenging terrain suggests a highly organized society capable of large-scale planning and resource management. Unlike more accessible sites, this fortress demonstrates mastery of logistics, terrain assessment, and engineering under conditions that would challenge even modern builders. Could the builders have possessed knowledge of leverage, weight distribution, and structural stability that has since been forgotten? Or was there a system of tools and techniques now lost that allowed them to achieve what appears almost impossible today? Speculative interpretations further deepen the mystery. Some researchers suggest that Shaori may have served as a ceremonial or religious site, a place where elites performed rites that required seclusion and elevation above the valleys below. Others posit that it functioned as an astronomical observatory, with walls and terraces aligned to track solar, lunar, or stellar cycles. Could the fortress have been both a practical stronghold and a sacred space, blending defensive architecture with ritual and celestial observation? There are also those who consider the possibility that Shaori functioned as a symbol of social cohesion and power, its construction meant to convey authority and unity to the communities below. Whatever the case, the complexity and audacity of the construction suggest intentionality, vision, and skill on a scale that continues to challenge researchers. Visiting Shaori today, one is immediately struck by the dramatic interplay between architecture and landscape. The walls rise from sheer slopes, terraced levels create cascading platforms, and massive stones fit together with uncanny precision. The fortress seems designed not only to resist time, but to command it, to leave a lasting impression on those who approach, whether friend or foe. The interplay of sunlight and shadow across the basalt surfaces changes continuously, emphasizing angles, edges, and alignments in ways that may have been intentionally designed to create visual or symbolic effects. Every step among the terraces, every glance down a narrow passage, evokes the presence of builders who understood geometry, physics, and perception in ways that remain almost incomprehensible today. The fortress also poses profound logistical questions. How were stones weighing multiple tons transported along steep ridges? How were walls raised to such heights with such precision? Could the builders have used now-lost techniques of leverage, ramps, or pulleys? And perhaps most compelling of all, why choose such an inaccessible location, where the effort required for construction far exceeds the apparent necessity? Was it purely defensive, symbolic, or a combination of factors that modern observers can only begin to speculate about? Even as research continues, Shaori Fortress retains an aura of mystery. It challenges assumptions about the capabilities of prehistoric societies in the Caucasus and underscores a recurring theme among enigmatic archaeological sites worldwide. Human ingenuity often outstrips the technology or resources we assume were available. Like Al-Rajajil, the Gallic Hillforts, or Ha'amonga, a Maui, Shaori presents a blend of practicality, symbolism, and technical mastery, leaving unanswered questions about both the process of construction and the purpose behind it. What knowledge guided these builders, and what cultural, ritual, or astronomical insights were encoded in stone? How much remains hidden beneath the terraces, the walls, and the cliffs themselves? As the sun begins its descent behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows across the terraces, the fortress seems to breathe with a life of its own, silent yet profoundly communicative. Shaori stands not merely as a remnant of human labor, but as a monument to imagination, ingenuity, and knowledge that has, in many ways, been lost to time. It invites us to wonder, to question, and to marvel, not only at what has been achieved, but at what might still remain hidden, waiting for patient observation and careful thought to reveal its secrets. In the stillness of the Georgian highlands, Shaori Fortress challenges us to consider the limits of human capability, the depth of lost knowledge, and the enduring mysteries that stone, landscape, and vision can preserve across millennia. Human ingenuity meets the untamed Caucasus landscape. Our exploration shifts once more, this time to the rolling limestone hills of Somerset, England. Here, amidst gently undulating meadows and scattered woodland, lies the stony Littleton Long Barrow, a Neolithic burial monument that, at first glance, appears deceptively simple. A low earthen mound stretching some 30 meters across, flanked by weathered stones. Yet the barrow's quiet presence conceals a complexity that has fascinated archaeologists for over a century, a monument where earth and stone combine to preserve both human remains and a profound sense of mystery. The stony Littleton Long Barrow, also known as the Bath Tumulus, dates to around 3700 BCE, placing it firmly within the early Neolithic period in Britain. Excavations in the early 20th century revealed a stone-built chamber within the mound, containing the skeletal remains of multiple individuals carefully arranged along the central axis. Unlike later, more individualized burials, the collective interment suggests a community-oriented approach to death and remembrance, one that reflects a broader social and ritual framework. Yet beyond the practical function of housing the dead, the barrow's construction raises fundamental questions about its builders. How did they transport, lift, and fit the massive limestone slabs that form its inner chambers? And what knowledge guided the alignment of stones, passageways, and chambers within the mound? Mainstream archaeological interpretations emphasize the barrow's role as a burial site, a sacred place where ancestors were honored and social cohesion reinforced. The passage, narrow and deliberately constructed, may have functioned as a processional route, allowing living participants to interact symbolically with the dead. Certain stones within the chamber appear to have been carefully selected for size, shape, and placement, suggesting an understanding of structural stability and load distribution that belies the supposed technological limitations of the period. Yet for all these explanations, a deeper enigma persists. Why invest such effort and precision into a structure whose purpose, while practical, also seems to demand an aesthetic and perhaps even symbolic sensibility that modern observers struggle to replicate? The Barrow's location adds another layer of intrigue. Situated on a gentle ridge overlooking the surrounding valley, it commands expansive views, yet is subtle enough not to dominate the landscape. Was this placement chosen for its visibility, its spiritual resonance, or its alignment with natural or celestial phenomena? Some researchers have noted that the mound and its internal passage may align with solar events, such as the rising sun during certain times of the year, hinting at an awareness of astronomical cycles. Could the builders have been marking the passage of time, integrating the mound with the rhythms of the natural world, or encoding symbolic meanings in its orientation? Inside the chamber, the story becomes even more compelling. The skeletal remains suggest repeated use, perhaps over generations, with careful placement and layering. Evidence of flint tools and pottery fragments hints at ritual offerings or funerary ceremonies, yet no written record explains the precise significance of these acts. The chamber's structure, with massive slabs forming its walls and capstone, exhibits an engineering precision remarkable for the era. How did these communities lift and position stones weighing several tons without levers, pulleys, or cranes? Could there have been lost techniques, methods passed orally through generations, that allowed them to achieve what modern builders might struggle to replicate even today? Speculative interpretations invite further wonder. Some researchers suggest that long barrows like Stony Littleton may have served as more than burial sites. They could have functioned as ceremonial centers, territorial markers, or even early expressions of cosmology, encoding knowledge about death, time, or the universe into their design. Others propose that the act of constructing such a mound was itself a ritual, a communal endeavor that reinforced social cohesion and transmitted cultural memory. The repetition of architectural features across multiple long barrows in the region suggests shared knowledge, yet the precise methods and intentions remain tantalizingly elusive. Walking around the mound today, the subtle interplay of stone and earth is immediately apparent. The carefully placed slabs, some of them worn smooth by millennia of weather, rise above the grassy surface, guiding the eye along the mound's central axis. The passage into the chamber, narrow and almost claustrophobic, creates a sense of intimacy and reverence, a designed experience that contrasts with the openness of the surrounding landscape. Every step within and around the barrow conveys intentionality. Geometry, proportion, and alignment are embedded in the stones themselves, speaking to an intelligence and awareness that transcends mere practicality. The logistical questions remain striking. Transporting and positioning large limestone slabs across uneven terrain, erecting walls and capstones without mortar, and aligning chambers with apparent precision would have required careful planning, coordination, and labor. Could these communities have possessed techniques now lost? Systems of measurement or leverage that enabled them to achieve structural stability and geometric consistency? And if so, what other knowledge, social, ritual, or astronomical, might have been encoded within the barrow, waiting to be interpreted by future generations? Even after centuries of study, Stony Littleton Long Barrow continues to resist full comprehension. It challenges assumptions about the capabilities of Neolithic societies, demonstrating both technical skill and a sophisticated understanding of space, proportion, and perhaps symbolism. Like Shaori Fortress, Al-Rajajil, and other enigmatic sites we have explored, the barrow combines practicality, social function, and intentional design, leaving unanswered questions about the people who built it and the knowledge they possessed. What ceremonies unfolded within its chambers? What meanings guided its construction? And what understanding of the cosmos or human society was encoded in stone and earth? As the sun sets over the Somerset Hills, shadows stretch along the mound and through the passage, highlighting the precise alignment of slabs and the enduring presence of this ancient monument. Stony Littleton Long Barrow does not reveal its secrets easily. It asks us to observe, reflect, and imagine. Its quiet form, meticulously constructed and purposefully placed, invites contemplation of the people who shaped it, the knowledge they carried, and the mysteries that have survived thousands of years in stone and soil. In the soft rustle of grass, in the play of light and shadow across the slabs, the barrow whispers its enduring enigma, reminding us that some human achievements, though tangible, deliberate, and replicable in intention, remain beyond our full understanding, preserving a connection to the ingenuity, belief, and curiosity of our distant ancestors. From the quiet stone chambers of Stony Littleton Long Barrow, where Neolithic communities encoded ritual and memory into earth and limestone, our journey now turns southward to the sun-drenched plains of ancient Achaia in Greece. Here, beneath the waters of a modern lagoon and the fertile floodplains of the Gulf of Corinth, lies the story of Helike, a city swallowed by the earth more than 2 millennia ago. Unlike the megaliths, barrows, and fortresses we have visited, Helike is a site that vanished almost entirely from the living world, leaving behind only fragments in myth, history, and the occasional submerged ruin. It is a city remembered not just through ruins, but through stories of sudden disappearance, a place where human ambition, natural forces, and the inexorable passage of time intersect in ways that continue to baffle scholars. Historical records place Helike as a prominent city-state during the 5th and 4th centuries BCE. It was a hub of commerce, religion, and culture, known for its temple dedicated to Poseidon and for its prosperity within the Achaean League. Yet in 373 BCE, disaster struck. An earthquake, followed by a tsunami, allegedly destroyed the city in a single day. Accounts by historians such as Strabo and Pausanias describe the devastation in haunting detail, noting how the city's temples, houses, and streets were swallowed beneath mud and seawater, leaving only memories and scattered debris. Archaeologists have confirmed traces of seismic activity and sediment deposition consistent with such an event, but the precise location and full extent of the city remained elusive for centuries. Excavations in the 20th and 21st centuries have gradually revealed evidence of Helike beneath the alluvial deposits of the Corinthian plain. Foundations, streets, and religious structures appear in the shifting sediments, often partially submerged or obscured by modern waterways. Yet even as fragments emerge, the mystery deepens. The city's layout, its engineering, and the speed with which it was destroyed and buried challenge conventional understanding. How did such a thriving urban center, complete with monumental temples and sophisticated civic planning, disappear so completely? And how did it endure under layers of mud and water, preserving traces of human achievement that are both tantalizing and difficult to study? Mainstream explanations point to a combination of geological instability and seismic activity. The Gulf of Corinth sits along a tectonic boundary where earthquakes and tsunamis have historically reshaped the landscape. Yet while these forces may explain the physical destruction of Helike, they do not fully account for the city's apparent sophistication, its rapid growth, or the deliberate urban planning that is evident even in the partially submerged ruins. Streets appear to follow orthogonal patterns, buildings are organized in clusters, and the temple precincts suggest advanced knowledge of public space and ceremonial architecture. What knowledge and techniques allowed the builders to construct a city that could flourish in a region prone to natural disaster? And what measures, if any, did they take to anticipate or mitigate the forces that ultimately swallowed it? Further intrigue arises from the city's sudden disappearance and the legends that followed. Ancient authors describe Helike not just as destroyed, but as cursed, its ruins hidden beneath mud for centuries as a warning or a symbol. Some reports suggest that fish-filled waters covered sacred precincts, and that the Temple of Poseidon remained miraculously intact beneath the silt, creating an almost mythical resonance that blurred history and folklore. Could these tales contain kernels of truth about the city's final moments, or do they represent the human tendency to ascribe meaning to disaster? And what of the artifacts now slowly emerging? Pottery, inscribed stones, and structural remnants that hint at daily life, trade, and religious observance, yet reveal so little about the techniques, governance, and cultural knowledge that shaped the city. Speculative theories expand the mystery even further. Some researchers propose that Helike may have been aligned with astronomical events, its temples and streets designed with consideration of solar, lunar, or stellar cycles. Others suggest that the city could have contained advanced hydraulic engineering or water management systems designed to harness the nearby rivers and the Gulf's tidal forces, knowledge that would have been essential for survival in a flood-prone area. Could the builders have possessed technical insights now lost to history, allowing them to construct a city that combined beauty, functionality, and resilience, even in the face of tectonic volatility? And if so, what other knowledge might have been encoded into the city's layout, its sacred precincts, or the positioning of its monumental structures? Visiting the modern site of Helike, or standing along the shallow lagoons that now cover its foundations, one is struck by the interplay of visibility and concealment. Mud, water, and sediment obscure yet preserve. They erase yet protect. Sunlight glimmers off the shallow waters, occasionally revealing the outlines of ancient walls or the tops of buried stones. Walking along the edge of the lagoon, it is possible to imagine the bustling streets, the ceremonial processions to Poseidon's temple, and the daily rhythms of trade and life, all paused abruptly by catastrophe. The city's story is written not in continuous stone, but in fragments, impressions, and the interplay of human memory and geological forces. The logistical and engineering questions are profound. How were temples and civic buildings erected with such apparent precision in a region so geologically unstable? How did the inhabitants construct durable structures capable of surviving moderate earthquakes, only to succumb to a catastrophe of extraordinary magnitude? Could the urban planners of Helike have employed techniques of leveling, stone cutting, or spatial design that exceed our current understanding of the era? And what does the city's sudden disappearance tell us about the vulnerability and resilience of human ingenuity when confronted with forces beyond comprehension? Even as excavation continues, Helike retains an aura of mystery. Its ruins suggest both mastery and fragility. A city carefully constructed, socially complex, and culturally vibrant, yet vulnerable to the overwhelming power of nature. Like Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Shaori Fortress, and Al-Rajajil before it, Helike embodies the tension between human ingenuity and forces that are impossible to control. The city's story challenges assumptions about ancient urban planning, construction techniques, and the knowledge available to civilizations that flourished thousands of years ago. What secrets remain buried beneath the mud, waiting for patient observation and careful study? What architectural, ritual, or engineering knowledge has been lost, preserved only in fragments and echoes? As the sun dips over the Gulf of Corinth, reflecting off the still waters that cover much of Helike's foundations, the city stands as both a warning and a marvel. It reminds us that even the most carefully constructed human achievements can be swept away, leaving behind a tantalizing mixture of evidence and enigma. Helike does not reveal its story easily. It asks us to ponder, to investigate, and to marvel at the combination of human vision and natural unpredictability. Beneath the lagoon's shimmering surface, among the buried stones and mud, The lost city whispers its enduring mystery, inviting us to question, imagine, and wonder what knowledge, skill, and culture have been preserved, hidden, and perhaps forever lost beneath the waters of time. From the submerged streets of Helike, a city swallowed by earthquake and sea, our journey returns to the rolling hills of England, where human hands have left another enduring, enigmatic mark on the landscape. In the heart of the Peak District, surrounded by gently undulating pastures and low limestone ridges, lies Arbor Low, a stone circle that seems at once serene and deliberately imposing. At first glance, the site appears modest, an outer circle of massive limestone blocks, some standing upright, others toppled or fractured, encircling a flattened mound of earth and smaller stones at the center. Yet as one walks among the stones, the scale, precision, and subtle complexity of the site emerge, revealing a monument whose purpose, construction, and meaning continue to elude full comprehension. Arbor Low is believed to have been constructed during the late Neolithic period, around 2500 to 2000 BCE, contemporaneous with other great ceremonial sites across Britain. Archaeological surveys indicate that the outer circle originally contained over 40 limestone blocks, arranged with geometric regularity, while the interior earthen mound, possibly a cairn, was constructed of smaller stones and earth. Excavations suggest that the mound may have contained burials, though definitive evidence is scarce, and the presence of later Bronze Age activity hints at continued use or ritual adaptation over centuries. The site's enduring mystery lies not merely in its age, but in the precision, scale, and choice of construction techniques, which reflect both practical skill and cultural intention that challenges modern understanding. Mainstream interpretations emphasize Arbor Low's ceremonial and social functions. The stone circle may have served as a gathering place for communities, a locus for seasonal festivals, or a center for ritual observances related to death, fertility, or celestial events. Its circular layout, echoing other monumental enclosures, may have facilitated processions, performances, or other communal activities. Yet while the site's function as a ritual center is plausible, it does not fully explain the meticulous arrangement of the stones, the labor required to move and erect them, or the apparent integration of the mound within the circle itself. How did a Neolithic society, lacking metal tools or wheeled transport, manage to quarry, transport, and precisely position these massive stones? How did they achieve such balance and stability, creating a structure that has persisted for over 4 millennia? Further intrigue emerges from Arbor Low's subtle alignments and spatial geometry. Observers have noted that the outer stones, while irregular in shape, form a near-perfect circle with indications of deliberate spacing and proportionality. The earthen mound at the center is flattened, almost as if designed for visibility or ceremonial access, and may have been aligned with natural features of the surrounding landscape. Some researchers suggest that the site may contain astronomical correlations, marking solstices, equinoxes, or other seasonal phenomena, though such alignments remain speculative. Could Arbor Low have functioned as both a social and astronomical hub, encoding knowledge about time, cycles, or cosmology into its very form? The physical challenge of construction at Arbor Low also amplifies its mystery. Each limestone block, some weighing several tons, would have required careful planning, coordination, and human ingenuity to quarry, transport, and erect. The outer circle rises directly from the natural bedrock, and the stones themselves are dressed or shaped in ways that suggest a detailed understanding of balance, load-bearing, and durability. Unlike more transient constructions, Arbor Low was designed to endure, blending geometry, engineering, and aesthetics in a way that modern observers still find remarkable. Could there have been techniques, now lost, that allowed Neolithic builders to achieve such precision with simple tools and limited mechanical advantage? Speculative interpretations invite further wonder. Some researchers suggest that the stone circle may have functioned as a sacred stage, where ritual, astronomy, and social cohesion intertwined. Others propose that Arbor Low, like nearby henges and megalithic monuments, encoded symbolic meanings, perhaps related to death, the passage of time, or the cosmological order. The repetition of circular and mound-based structures across Britain hints at shared knowledge, traditions, or design principles, yet the methods for translating that knowledge into stone remain elusive. Did these builders possess conceptual frameworks that combined observation, ritual, and practical engineering in ways we cannot fully reconstruct today? Walking among the stones of Arbor Low, the experience is quietly humbling. The surrounding landscape is pastoral, almost peaceful, yet the monument asserts its presence through scale, geometry, and endurance. The stones rise above the grass, some fractured, some upright, each suggesting human intention and labor. The earthen mound at the center creates a focal point, drawing the eye inward and encouraging reflection on what activities, ceremonies, or observances may have occurred here. Every shadow, every irregularity in the stone, every subtle alignment hints at knowledge encoded in form and placement, a knowledge that transcends the mere physical act of construction. The logistical questions remain profound. How were stones weighing multiple tons moved and raised without advanced tools? How did the builders achieve the apparent geometric regularity of the circle and the integration of the mound within it? Was there a system of measurement, observation, or apprenticeship that allowed for this precision? And if so, why has such knowledge left so little trace in the archaeological record? These questions echo across millennia, connecting Arbor Low with other enigmatic monuments we have explored: Shaori Fortress, Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Helike, each demonstrating a combination of human skill, social organization, and technical ingenuity that challenges assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. Even as researchers continue to study Arbor Low, it retains an aura of quiet mystery. The site is both monumental and subtle, a place where physical presence, ritual practice, and symbolic intention converge, yet remain partly hidden from understanding. The stones, standing as they have for thousands of years, offer glimpses into human thought, ambition, and knowledge, yet withhold the full story. What rituals unfolded within the circle? What knowledge was encoded in the placement, spacing, or alignments of the stones? And what cultural, spiritual, or astronomical insights might be lost forever, preserved only in stone and memory? As the sun sets over the limestone pastures, casting long shadows across the circle, Arbor Low seems to breathe with a quiet life of its own. It reminds us that some human achievements are tangible yet elusive, deliberate yet mysterious, grounded in labor and vision that can be observed but not fully replicated. Like Helike, Shaori, and Stony Littleton, the site challenges modern assumptions about the technical and social capabilities of its builders. It invites us to consider not only what they built, but why, and what understanding of the world they sought to encode in stone, earth, and space. In the stillness of the Peak District, Arbor Low whispers its enigma, urging observation, contemplation, and wonder, leaving us to imagine what remains hidden in plain sight, preserved across millennia, yet just beyond our grasp. From the serene stones of Arbor Low, where Neolithic communities left their mark on England's rolling pastures, our exploration turns across the sea to the rugged landscapes of Corsica. Here, amid granite outcrops, dense maquis scrub, and wind-sculpted valleys, lie clusters of dolmens, prehistoric stone chambers whose origins, construction, and purpose continue to captivate and confound. At first glance, the dolmens appear deceptively simple, massive slabs of stone forming rectangular chambers, some capped with enormous capstones, others partially collapsed or weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Yet these silent monuments hold stories of human ingenuity, ritual complexity, and enduring mystery, challenging our assumptions about the capabilities of prehistoric societies. The dolmen clusters of Corsica are generally attributed to the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age, roughly between 3000 and 1500 BCE. They are scattered across the island, often positioned on elevated terraces or along ridgelines that command panoramic views of the surrounding terrain. Each dolmen consists of upright orthostats supporting a capstone, forming enclosed spaces that were likely used for burial or ritual. Yet while their general purpose as tombs is widely accepted, the precise methods of construction remain uncertain. How did island communities, limited in population and technology, transport stones weighing several tons across rugged terrain? How did they achieve the stability and precision necessary to construct chambers that could endure millennia of seismic activity, erosion, and weathering? Mainstream archaeology interprets these structures primarily as burial monuments or ritual sites. Excavations in some dolmens reveal human remains, pottery, and occasional tools or offerings, suggesting that these were sites of repeated use over generations. Yet the placement of the dolmens often seems symbolic rather than merely functional. Many clusters occupy elevated positions with sweeping views, suggesting a deliberate selection of landscape that conveys social, spiritual, or cosmological meaning. Could these elevated sites have been designed to connect the living with ancestors, deities, or celestial phenomena? And if so, what knowledge guided their selection, orientation, and arrangement within the landscape? The engineering feats inherent in these constructions are striking. Capstones, sometimes weighing several tons, were lifted and balanced atop upright slabs without mortar or mechanical assistance, a process that would challenge modern builders. Some dolmens are aligned with surprising regularity, forming small networks or clusters that suggest deliberate spatial planning. Could the builders have possessed techniques now lost to history, methods of leverage, inclined planes, or even communal engineering rituals that allowed them to manipulate massive stones with precision? The very act of construction implies not just technical skill, but coordination, shared knowledge, and perhaps an understanding of geometry and weight distribution that modern observers can scarcely replicate without mechanization. Speculative interpretations add further depth to the mystery. Some researchers propose that the dolmens served as more than tombs. They could have functioned as ceremonial platforms, markers of territorial boundaries, or sites for astronomical observation. Certain alignments appear to correspond with solar or lunar cycles, suggesting awareness of celestial movements. Could the clustering of dolmens reflect a symbolic mapping of the cosmos, a deliberate encoding of cosmological knowledge in stone? Others suggest that the act of raising these monuments may have been as important as their function. Ritualized construction that reinforced social cohesion, transmitted technical knowledge, and signified collective devotion to ancestors or deities. Visiting the Corsican dolmen clusters today, one is struck by the harmony between the stones and their environment. The dolmens rise naturally from the granite terraces, blending with the landscape as if they were extensions of the hills themselves. The surrounding maquis, dense and aromatic, softens the edges of the stone, while sunlight and shadow shift across the chambers, revealing angles, surfaces, and textures that speak to deliberate choice and careful workmanship. Walking among these stones, one senses not just the labor invested, but the intention embedded in every placement. Each upright slab, each capstone, each cluster positioned to convey meaning or purpose beyond mere survival. The logistical questions continue to inspire awe. How were these stones moved, lifted, and balanced without metal tools or wheeled transport? How did prehistoric builders calculate alignments, proportion, and spatial relationships over uneven terrain? Could they have used now-lost techniques of observation, geometry, or teamwork that enabled them to achieve stability, symmetry, and resilience in structures that remain standing today? And if so, what other knowledge, ritual, astronomical, or cultural, might have been encoded within the very layout and positioning of the dolmens, waiting to be deciphered? Even centuries later, the dolmens maintain a quiet, almost sacred presence. Unlike more massive, heavily studied megalithic monuments, these island structures exude subtlety and intimacy, yet they are no less remarkable in their sophistication and endurance. They reflect a combination of vision, engineering, and social coordination that challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric communities, particularly on an island where resources, manpower, and technology were inherently limited. Like Arbor Low, Helike, and Shaori Fortress, the Corsican dolmens illustrate the tension between human ingenuity and environmental constraints, a tension that leaves us wondering about both the methods and the minds that produced them. Walking among the stones as the wind rustles through the surrounding scrub, one cannot help but feel the presence of those who built the monuments. Their labor, observation, and intention remain etched into stone, yet much is lost to time. What ceremonies unfolded within these chambers? What cultural or astronomical knowledge guided their arrangement? How did island communities coordinate such monumental undertakings, and what principles of engineering, ritual, or symbolism have vanished with the passing centuries? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, preserved only in the stones themselves and the patterns they form across the landscape. As the sun sets over Corsica's rugged hills, casting long shadows across the dolmen clusters, the stones take on an almost otherworldly quality. They rise as silent witnesses to a human story partially lost, yet still visible through careful observation and reflection. The dolmens invite contemplation, urging us to consider not just the effort required to build them, but the knowledge, intention, and cultural sophistication embedded in every placement, balance, and alignment. Like the other enigmatic sites we have visited, they challenge our assumptions, leaving unanswered questions about what humans can achieve and what knowledge can endure across millennia. In the quiet of the Corsican hills, the dolmens whisper their enduring mystery, inviting us to wonder what remains hidden, encoded in stone and space, waiting for those patient enough to see, to question, and to imagine. From the wind-swept granite hills of Corsica, where dolmens rise in clusters like silent sentinels of human intention, our exploration moves to the rugged northwestern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, to Galicia, Spain. Perched atop a steep hill overlooking the Minho River and the Atlantic beyond, lies Castro de Santa Trega, an ancient settlement that commands the landscape with remarkable presence. From a distance, the site appears as a dense patchwork of stone foundations, terraces, and low walls, blending seamlessly with the natural contours of the hill. Yet closer observation reveals a striking order and sophistication. Circular dwellings, defensive ramparts, and terraces carved with purpose, all testifying to a community capable of extraordinary planning and construction. Castro de Santa Trega is classified as a castro, a fortified hilltop settlement characteristic of the late Iron Age, roughly between the first millennium BCE and the early centuries CE. Excavations have revealed circular stone houses, streets laid out along the hill's natural slope, and defensive walls that snake along its ridges, often incorporating natural rock outcrops. Some walls reach impressive heights, constructed with carefully dressed stones fitted together without mortar, reminiscent of other megalithic traditions across Europe. Yet while its classification as a fortified settlement provides a functional explanation, the technical skill and geometric precision of the construction invite deeper inquiry. How did these communities, using basic tools, transport, cut and fit massive stones along steep, uneven terrain with such apparent accuracy and durability. The positioning of Castro de Santa Trega adds another layer of intrigue. The settlement overlooks river valleys and the open sea, suggesting strategic placement for defense, trade, and communication. Mainstream archaeology interprets the location as a natural fortress, offering visibility and control over surrounding lands and waterways. Yet the settlement's layout, with carefully arranged terraces, dwellings, and communal spaces, suggests more than mere practicality. Could the hilltop have also been chosen for symbolic or ritual reasons, integrating cosmology, social hierarchy, or spiritual practice into its design? Were certain terraces, walls, or pathways deliberately aligned with celestial events, seasonal changes, or the topography of neighboring peaks and rivers? The engineering of Castro de Santa Trega is striking. Circular stone dwellings, some with diameters exceeding 5 meters, demonstrate knowledge of load distribution and stability. The ramparts incorporate massive stones at key points, sometimes using natural boulders as integral components of the fortification, showing an intuitive understanding of structural engineering. Transporting and positioning these stones would have required meticulous planning, teamwork, and possibly techniques now lost to history. How did communities without cranes or advanced mechanical tools raise walls that resist centuries of erosion, frost, and human activity? And beyond the practical, did these structures encode social, ritual, or even astronomical knowledge within their design? Archaeologists have found evidence of daily life: hearths, storage pits, tools, and fragments of pottery, indicating a society that combined agriculture, craft, and trade. Yet the spatial organization of the settlement hints at a complex social structure, with larger or more carefully constructed dwellings, perhaps reserved for elite families or leaders. Terraces and streets are aligned with apparent care, suggesting a planned settlement rather than a haphazard cluster of homes. Could Castro de Santa Trega have functioned not only as a defensive site, but also as a social, political, or ceremonial center? And if so, what principles guided the planners as they balanced the demands of survival, defense, and community cohesion? Speculative interpretations deepen the mystery. Some researchers suggest that certain features may have served ritual purposes, such as altars or gathering spaces oriented toward significant celestial events. Others hypothesize that the settlement may have functioned as a hub for regional trade and communication, exploiting its commanding views of the river and coast. Still others consider the possibility that the precise arrangement of walls, dwellings, and terraces reflects a system of knowledge, mathematical, architectural, or cosmological, that was encoded in stone and topography rather than in writing. Could the builders have understood principles of geometry, observation, or environmental manipulation that we cannot fully reconstruct today? Walking among the ruins of Castro de Santa Trega, one feels the deliberate interaction between human design and natural landscape. The stone foundations rise above terraced slopes. The remnants of circular houses trace patterns that hint at social organization, and the defensive walls snake along the ridgelines like stone veins connecting high points across the hill. The interplay of shadow, sunlight, and perspective emphasizes the thoughtfulness of placement, while the natural contours of the hill are seamlessly integrated into the built environment. Every stone, every wall, every terrace speaks not just of construction, but of intention, knowledge, and enduring human presence. The logistical challenges remain striking. How did the builders transport and shape massive stones along steep inclines? How did they coordinate labor for construction and maintenance across generations? And how much of their knowledge, structural, social, or symbolic, has been lost to time, leaving only the stones themselves as a record of human ingenuity? The answers remain elusive, echoing the same questions posed by Arbor Low, the Dolmen cluster of Corsica, and Helike. Knowledge and skill, applied with remarkable foresight that continues to inspire awe. Even today, Castro de Santa Trega retains an aura of quiet power. Its terraces, walls, and circular dwellings evoke the lives of people who thrived on the margins of the Atlantic, who understood both the potential and the limits of the natural world, and who encoded their knowledge in stone for generations to come. Like the other enigmatic sites we have explored, it is a testament to human creativity, planning, and social complexity, yet it remains resistant to full understanding. What rituals took place within its walls? What knowledge guided the placement of terraces, dwellings, and defensive structures? And how much of its story, social, technical, or spiritual, has been irrevocably lost, preserved only in stone, landscape, and memory? As the sun sinks toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged hilltop, Castro de Santa Trega seems almost alive in its silence. It invites reflection, urging us to consider not only what was achieved, but how and why. The site challenges assumptions about prehistoric societies, reminding us that human ingenuity, even under constraints of technology and geography, can produce constructions that endure, inspire, and confound. Among the stones and terraces, amidst the wind and the view of the Atlantic, the fortress whispers its enigma, inviting us to wonder what remains hidden, waiting to be uncovered, and what knowledge, skill, or vision lies encoded in stone for those patient enough to observe, question, and imagine. From the windswept terraces and fortified dwellings of Castro de Santa Trega, where human ingenuity melded seamlessly with rugged hills, our journey takes us across continents to the vast savannas and gentle river valleys of West Africa. Here, in the region spanning modern-day Senegal and the Gambia, lie the enigmatic stone circles of Senegambia, thousands of standing stones scattered across the landscape in deliberate patterns, whispering the presence of societies long vanished and the mysteries of knowledge lost to time. Unlike the carefully constructed settlements or burial mounds of Europe, these stone circles appear dispersed, yet their arrangement hints at an intentional design that continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. The stone circles, numbering in the thousands across hundreds of sites, date from approximately the 3rd century BCE to the 16th century CE, spanning a period of profound societal development in the region. Each circle consists of upright stones, sometimes grouped in rings, rows, or larger clusters, with diameters ranging from a few meters to over 30 meters. The stones themselves vary in size, some small enough to be lifted by a single person, others massive, weighing several tons. Excavations at select sites have revealed human burials, pottery fragments, and metal objects, suggesting that the circles may have served both ritual and funerary purposes. Yet, beyond these practical explanations, the scale, distribution, and regularity of the stones provoke deeper questions. How did societies transport, raise, and position massive stones across often uneven terrain without advanced machinery? And what guiding principles determined the placement, orientation, and clustering of these monuments? Mainstream interpretations suggest the circles functioned as cemeteries or ritual spaces for ancestor worship, marking sacred or communal ground for the burial of elites or important community members. Excavated graves often reveal careful placement of the deceased, accompanied by offerings of beads, iron tools, or ceramics, hinting at complex spiritual beliefs and social hierarchies. Yet the uniformity and repetition of certain features across widely separated sites indicate a shared cultural or technological knowledge, a set of practices transmitted over generations and vast distances. How did these communities, separated by rivers, forests, and savannas, coordinate or perpetuate such consistent monument-building traditions? And what knowledge, now lost, allowed them to manipulate and align these stones with such deliberation? The organization of the circles deepens the intrigue. Some alignments appear to correspond with cardinal points, while others seem oriented toward rising or setting celestial bodies, suggesting an awareness of solar or lunar cycles. Could the stone circles have functioned as calendars, observatories, or ritual markers tied to celestial events? Alternatively, could they have encoded social or territorial boundaries, delineating sacred or political space across the landscape? Unlike European stone circles, which are often concentrated in a single site, the Senegambian monuments are dispersed yet systematically placed across hundreds of square kilometers. Was this an expression of a regional ideology, a way to imprint cultural identity onto the land itself? The construction of the stone circles presents remarkable logistical challenges. Many stones weigh several tons and would have required careful planning, teamwork, and knowledge of leverage to transport and erect. In some sites, stones appear deliberately selected for height, shape, or color, suggesting not merely practical effort but aesthetic or symbolic consideration. How were these massive stones moved across savanna or woodland terrain without wheeled vehicles or metal tools? Were techniques employed that have since been forgotten, ramps, rollers, or communal levers that allowed the stones to be positioned with astonishing precision and stability? And what level of planning and societal coordination was necessary to build and maintain thousands of these monuments over centuries? Speculative interpretations invite further reflection. Some researchers propose that the stone circles were sites of ceremonial gathering, where communities convened for seasonal rituals, initiations, or communal decision-making. Others suggest that the circles may encode cosmological knowledge, serving as tangible representations of ancestral wisdom or astronomical observation. The repetition of form, orientation, and clustering across distant sites hints at a conceptual framework, a system of understanding that guided placement, geometry, and design. Could it be that these ancient builders encoded knowledge in stone, using patterns and orientation to communicate spiritual, social, or cosmic principles across generations? Visiting a Senegambian stone circle today, one is immediately struck by the harmony of human construction and natural landscape. The upright stones, weathered and worn, rise from the grassy earth in a manner both stark and deliberate. Some circles sit atop gentle rises, commanding views of the surrounding plains, while others nestle into low valleys, their purpose subtler yet no less intentional. The interplay of light and shadow, of stone against sky and grass, emphasizes the careful selection and placement of each element, revealing a monument that is at once practical, symbolic, and aesthetically resonant. Walking among the stones, one senses the presence of generations of builders, their labor, observation, and intention etched into every upright slab, every ring, and every alignment. The logistical and cultural questions remain profound. How were massive stones quarried, transported, and lifted without advanced machinery? What systems of measurement, observation, or social organization allowed such consistency across vast landscapes? And what knowledge, whether technical, spiritual, or astronomical, guided the creation of these monuments and the placement of the deceased or ritual spaces within them? These unanswered questions echo the same enigmas encountered at Arbor Low, Helike, and Castro de Santa Trega. Societies operating with skill, vision, and coordination, achieving feats of construction and cultural sophistication that challenge modern assumptions. Even after centuries of study, the stone circles of Senegambia retain an aura of quiet power and mystery. They are enduring monuments to human ingenuity, belief, and social cohesion, yet their full story remains elusive. Each circle, each stone, and each alignment offers clues, but the broader narrative, the cultural reasoning, The methods and the cosmic or social knowledge encoded in these arrangements remains tantalizingly beyond reach. What ceremonies unfolded here? What principles guided the placement of each stone? And how much of this knowledge has been irrevocably lost, preserved only in stone, space, and landscape? As the African sun dips low over the savanna, casting long shadows across the upright stones, the circles of Senegambia seem to breathe with a life of their own. They stand as monuments to human creativity, technical skill, and ritual imagination. Yet they guard their secrets jealously. They remind us that even within societies without written records or mechanized tools, knowledge, vision, and ingenuity could be expressed in stone and land with a precision that modern eyes find astonishing. Amid the quiet plains and gentle hills, the stone circles whisper their enduring enigma, inviting us to ponder, reflect, and imagine what remains hidden, waiting for those willing to observe, question, and marvel at the ingenuity of the past. From the sprawling stone circles of Senegambia, where generations of West African communities etched their beliefs and knowledge into the savanna, our exploration returns to the windswept plains of Europe, to the stark limestone karsts of the Burren in County Clare, Ireland. Here, amid fissured rock, sparse vegetation, and a landscape sculpted by millennia of glacial and erosive forces, stands one of the most iconic and enigmatic monuments of the Neolithic world, Poulnabrone Dolmen. The dolmen rises with striking simplicity, yet an almost defiant presence. A portal of massive capstone resting atop slender, carefully positioned orthostats, forming a chamber that has held human remains, artifacts, and mysteries for more than 5,000 years. At first glance, Poulnabrone appears deceptively austere, a single, large, horizontal limestone slab balanced precariously upon vertical supports, its edges weathered and softened by centuries of wind, rain, and sun. Yet beneath this simplicity lies a monument of extraordinary technical skill. The capstone alone weighs several tons, a single enormous rock that would have required careful selection, transportation, and raising by a Neolithic community without wheels, cranes, or metal tools. Archaeologists have marveled at the ingenuity implied in the construction, noting not only the precision of placement but the long-term stability of the structure. How did these ancient builders accomplish such a feat, ensuring balance and durability with the limited technology available to them? Poulnabrone's function, while partially understood, remains layered with mystery. Excavations have revealed that the dolmen served as a collective burial site, containing the remains of at least 30 individuals, ranging from infants to adults, accompanied by flint tools, pottery shards, and personal ornaments. The careful deposition of these remains suggests ritualized treatment, indicating that Poulnabrone was more than a mere repository for the dead. It was a ceremonial site, a focal point for communal memory and ancestor veneration. Yet the choice of location amid the rugged and fragmented landscape of the Burren raises questions. Why build such a monumental tomb on exposed limestone, far from fertile soils or easy transportation routes? Was the selection of site symbolic, astronomical, or ritualistic? And if so, what principles guided these decisions? The logistical challenge of constructing Poulnabrone adds to its enigma. The vertical orthostats, each cut and shaped with careful intention, were raised from the surrounding landscape and positioned with remarkable precision. The capstone, resting with an almost impossible balance atop the supports, suggests an intuitive understanding of leverage, weight distribution, and communal engineering techniques. Could the builders have used earthen ramps, ropes, or scaffolding of organic materials now lost to history? And what planning, coordination, or cultural knowledge was required to organize labor, quarry stones, and execute such a feat in a society without written records? Speculation extends beyond the practical into the symbolic. The dolmen's form, a simple portal leading into an enclosed chamber, may have had cosmological significance, symbolizing passage between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. Some researchers propose that the dolmen could have been aligned with solar or lunar events, marking cycles of the year or ritual occasions. Others suggest that the burren itself, with its labyrinthine fissures, exposed bedrock, and seasonal flora, was a landscape imbued with spiritual meaning, a canvas onto which Neolithic communities projected cosmology, ancestry, and memory. Could the placement of Poulnabrone have been guided by observations of the heavens, natural landmarks, or acoustic properties of the site, creating a space where ritual, environment, and architecture converged? Archaeological analysis has also revealed traces of continued use and reverence long after the initial burials. Artifacts from later periods, as well as signs of repeated human activity, suggest that Poulnabrone remained culturally significant over centuries, possibly millennia. This enduring presence adds to the mystery. How did successive generations interpret, maintain, and perhaps even modify a site created long before their own time? Was the knowledge of construction techniques, ceremonial protocols, or symbolic meaning passed down orally, or was it encoded into the very stones themselves? As eyeing Poulnabrone today, the dolmen's presence is both solemn and commanding. Standing beneath the capstone, one can feel the weight of millennia, not only in the stones themselves, but in the human effort, ritual, and cultural memory embedded within them. The surrounding landscape, stripped of trees and shaped by glacial activity, seems almost to echo the forms of the dolmen, fissured, layered, and enduring. Walking around the monument, the subtle inclinations of the stone slabs, the irregular spacing of the orthostats, and the way the structure harmonizes with the uneven ground suggest a remarkable understanding of natural forces and material properties. Every aspect of Poulnabrone speaks to a combination of technical ingenuity, aesthetic sensibility, and spiritual purpose that continues to elude full understanding. The unanswered questions are profound. How exactly did Neolithic communities select, transport, and raise these massive stones with limited technology? What social or organizational structures enabled such a project, requiring coordination, skill, and vision over potentially generations? And what knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, or ritualistic, was encoded in the very form, orientation, and placement of the dolmen? These mysteries echo the challenges found at Arbor Low, the dolmen cluster of Corsica, and the stone circles of Senegambia. Communities operating with knowledge and skill that, while visible in the physical world, remain tantalizingly resistant to complete reconstruction. Speculative interpretations continue to invite curiosity. Some researchers have suggested that the dolmen's orientation and the dimensions of its chamber may have been deliberately chosen to manipulate light and shadow, creating dramatic effects during solstices or equinoxes. Others posit that the site may have served as a focal point for social cohesion, a place where multiple clans or families came together to honor ancestors and negotiate communal memory. Could the dolmen have encoded a form of prehistoric mathematics or cosmology, hidden in proportion, alignment, and spatial arrangement? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been lost, preserved only in the stones themselves and the traces of ritual behavior buried within the chamber? Even as modern archaeology continues to uncover fragments of the past, Poulnabrone maintains a quiet, almost mystical presence. The dolmen endures as both monument and enigma, a testament to human creativity, technical skill, and spiritual vision. Standing among the stones, feeling their weight, their balance, and their silent testimony, one is reminded that the Neolithic world was capable of extraordinary achievement. These communities transformed raw stone into enduring symbols of memory, ritual, and social cohesion, creating structures that resist time, weather, and human understanding alike. As the sun dips low over the burren, casting long shadows across fissured limestone and the silhouette of the capstone, Poulnabrone seems almost alive in its stillness. It challenges our assumptions about prehistoric societies, urging us to consider not only what was built, but how, why, and with what knowledge. The dolmen stands as a silent teacher, a monument to labor, vision, and cultural continuity, yet a puzzle that defies complete comprehension. What rituals unfolded within the chamber? What knowledge guided the placement of each stone? And how much has been lost to time, leaving only the stones and their whispers as testimony to a civilization's ingenuity, ambition, and enduring mystery? From the windswept limestone plains of the Burren, where Poulnabrone Dolmen rises with austere elegance, our exploration moves southward to the Iberian Peninsula, into the rolling hills and fertile valleys of Andalusia, Spain. Here, just beyond the town of Valencina de la Concepcion, lies another enigmatic testament to Neolithic ingenuity, Dolmen de la Pastora. Nestled amidst gentle fields and patches of low woodland, the dolmen emerges from the earth like a portal to a distant past. Its massive capstone rests upon upright orthostats, forming a chamber whose presence seems simultaneously intimate and monumental, a silent witness to human endeavor, ritual, and mystery that has endured for over 5 millennia. At first glance, Dolmen de la Pastora captivates with its understated elegance. The structure consists of a long, narrow chamber, enclosed by upright limestone slabs and capped with a single, immense horizontal stone. Surrounding the chamber, remnants of a circular mound hint at a once larger cairn that would have encased the tomb, linking earth, stone, and ritual in a deliberate architectural composition. The dolmen's proportions, the careful selection of stones, and the alignment of the chamber entrance reveal a level of sophistication and intention that speaks to both technical skill and cultural symbolism. How did Neolithic builders, with no metal tools or wheeled transport, manage to manipulate stones of such weight and scale? And why choose this precise location, amidst gentle hills, rather than atop more prominent elevations? Excavations at Dolmen de la Pastora have revealed human burials, some accompanied by ceramics, stone tools, and other offerings. Radiocarbon dating suggests construction between 3000 and 2500 BCE, placing it firmly within the late Neolithic period. Yet while its role as a tomb is widely accepted, the dolmen's broader significance remains elusive. Why were the dead interred within such carefully constructed chambers, sometimes repeatedly over generations? Was the architecture itself considered part of the ritual, a conduit between the living and the spiritual world, or an expression of social hierarchy? The patterns of burials and grave goods suggest deliberate choices in who was placed where, but the underlying logic, the cultural, spiritual, or practical reasoning, remains hidden beneath layers of stone and soil. The engineering of Dolmen de la Pastora is striking. The vertical orthostats, carefully positioned to support the massive capstone, reflect an intuitive understanding of leverage, weight distribution, and stability. The capstone itself, weathered yet resilient, demonstrates not only technical skill but a sense of proportion, balance, and aesthetic judgment. How did Neolithic builders determine the precise placement of each stone? Were simple machines like ramps, levers, and wooden scaffolds employed? Or did the construction rely primarily on collective human labor, guided by experience and tradition? And how much knowledge of materials, physics, and geometry was encoded in the hands and minds of the builders, now lost to time? The dolmen's orientation and location further deepen the mystery. The chamber faces roughly east, hinting at a potential connection with the rising sun, a feature observed in other Neolithic tombs across Europe. Could the alignment have been intended to mark seasonal cycles, ritual times, or symbolic passage from life to death? Moreover, the dolmen sits within a landscape shaped by human and natural forces, with gentle slopes and nearby water sources, suggesting both practical and symbolic considerations. Was the choice of site guided by spiritual significance, landscape aesthetics, or community accessibility? Or perhaps it served multiple purposes, balancing ritual, astronomy, and practicality in a single design. Dolmen de la Pastora also raises questions about social organization and cultural continuity. The construction of such a monument would have required coordinated labor, planning, and knowledge transfer across generations. The repeated use of the chamber for burials implies a social system capable of sustaining ritual practices over centuries. How were these communities organized to execute projects of such scale? Were there specialists, elders, or architects who understood principles of construction, measurement, and ceremonial practice? And how was knowledge transmitted in a society without written language, relying on observation, oral tradition, and hands-on instruction? Speculative interpretations invite further reflection. Some researchers have suggested that the dolmen functioned not only as a tomb, but as a ceremonial or astronomical site, marking the cycles of the sun, moon, or stars. Others posit that the chamber itself was a stage for ritual performance, with the capstone acting as a symbolic roof separating realms, and the chamber floor serving as a space where communal ceremonies unfolded. Could Dolmen de la Pastora have encoded knowledge in its very geometry, proportions, and orientation, offering a system of understanding that combined cosmology, social hierarchy, and spiritual practice? And if so, how much of that knowledge remains hidden, preserved only in the alignment of stones and the traces of ritual left behind? Walking through the dolmen today, one is struck by the tactile presence of stone and the echo of human labor. The weight and texture of the orthostats, the sheer scale of the capstone, and the subtle inclinations of the chamber speak of deliberate intention. The surrounding mound, now partially eroded, hints at a once complete structure that harmonized stone, earth, and landscape in a singular vision. Standing within the chamber, one can almost sense the footsteps of those who built it, the ceremonies performed, and the generations of memory and reverence that followed. The silence is profound, yet the monument communicates, through proportion, orientation, and endurance, a message of human creativity and ambition that transcends millennia. The logistical challenges of constructing Dolmen de la Pastora remain staggering. Transporting massive stones across uneven terrain, raising the capstone onto orthostats with precision, and ensuring long-term stability, all without metal tools or wheels, demonstrates a level of skill and coordination that continues to confound modern observers. And beyond the physical achievement, the dolmen prompts profound questions about the cultural and symbolic frameworks that guided its creation. What knowledge informed the selection of stone, the placement of burials, the alignment of the chamber? How did these communities conceptualize space, death, and ritual in ways that allowed them to execute such enduring monuments? Even after 5 millennia, Dolmen de la Pastora retains an aura of quiet mystery. Its massive stones, weathered by wind and rain, rise above the gentle Andalusian hills like a timeless signature of human intention. The dolmen challenges assumptions about prehistoric societies, reminding us that communities without written records or mechanized tools were capable of extraordinary technical skill, aesthetic vision, and cultural expression. It invites reflection not only on what was built, but on why, how, and what knowledge may be preserved in the very stones themselves. As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the chamber and the surrounding mound, Dolmen de la Pastora seems almost alive in its stillness. It stands as both monument and enigma, a testament to human ingenuity, ritual, and continuity, yet resistant to full understanding. What ceremonies unfolded within its chamber? What knowledge guided the placement of each stone, the orientation of the dolmen, and the arrangement of burials? And how much remains hidden, encoded in architecture, landscape, and memory, waiting for those willing to observe, question, and contemplate the extraordinary capabilities of our distant ancestors? Rising abruptly from the flat, verdant plains of central Sri Lanka, Sigiriya, often called the Lion Rock, dominates the landscape with a presence that is both majestic and unsettling. From a distance, it appears almost impossibly isolated, a solitary monolith of red-brown stone, its summit piercing the sky, sheer cliffs surrounding it on all sides. In the morning light, a faint mist often clings to the base, softening the edges of the rock and lending it an otherworldly aura. The first time you see it, there is a sense that this is not merely a geological formation, but a place deliberately set apart, a sentinel of forgotten history, waiting for secrets to be unearthed. Climbing closer, the scale of Sigiriya becomes apparent. The rock rises nearly 200 meters above the surrounding plains, its vertical walls nearly impregnable. At its base, gardens stretch out in geometrically precise patterns, their layout surviving the passage of centuries. Channels, ponds, and fountains suggest a sophisticated hydraulic system far ahead of its time. Scholars agree these features date to the 5th century CE, attributed to King Kasyapa, who reportedly transformed the natural rock into a fortified palace. The official history describes a king seeking both protection and prestige, erecting a citadel that would impress and intimidate alike. Yet, as you wander the remnants of terraces and stairways carved into the rock, a subtle unease emerges. There is something about Sigiriya that defies simple explanation. The ascent begins with a series of steep stairways and winding paths, etched into the cliff face itself. Halfway up, the famous frescoes appear, women painted in delicate shades of red, ochre, and green, their outlines curving with a grace that seems almost too perfect for their age. Scholars debate their purpose. Were they royal courtesans, priestesses, or symbolic figures representing celestial beings? The frescoes are remarkably well preserved, sheltered in shallow rock alcoves, yet their precision, how such delicate artistry could survive centuries of tropical rain and monsoon winds, remains a marvel. Some theorists speculate that the artists may have employed techniques or materials lost to history, capable of resisting decay in ways modern science struggles to replicate. Others, more cautiously, point to the careful placement under natural rock overhangs and the protective microclimate as the key. Either way, the effect is haunting. Eyes seem to follow the visitor, the figures frozen in an eternal gaze. Beyond the frescoes lies the Lion's Gate, a massive stone staircase flanked by 2 enormous lion paws carved from solid rock. The rest of the lion's body has eroded over centuries, leaving only these monumental claws as silent testimony to a grandeur long vanished. Legend holds that the king intended to fashion a full lion figure, a symbol of strength and dominion, but even if the project remained incomplete, the impact is undeniable. Walking between the massive paws, one cannot help but feel dwarfed, as though stepping into a realm meant for the extraordinary. What was the king's vision here? Was Sigiriya merely a fortress? Or was it designed as a kind of cosmic stage, merging art, architecture, and the natural world into a singular, overwhelming experience? The summit itself is a plateau, flat and expansive, bearing the ruins of what once were grand royal pavilions, audience halls, and water gardens. Pools and cisterns are carved directly into the rock, their channels still intact, some even surprisingly functional after more than 15 centuries. Engineers and historians marvel at the ingenuity required to design such a sophisticated water system, particularly in a location with no natural freshwater sources at its peak. How did the builders understand hydraulics well enough to collect, filter, and circulate water at such a height? And why dedicate such painstaking effort to a site so isolated, so difficult to access? As the sun moves across the sky, the shadows on the rock shift, revealing patterns in the stone that appear almost deliberate. Lines, indentations, and terraces that do not seem entirely practical, yet hint at symbolic or ritual significance. Some researchers suggest astronomical alignment, noting that certain walls and pathways correspond to solstices or equinoxes. Could the king's fortress have also served as a celestial observatory, merging temporal power with cosmic order? It is difficult to know. Archaeology can tell us what was built, how it functioned, and roughly when, but it cannot fully illuminate why, or the intentions encoded in the stone itself. Beneath the grandeur of terraces and pools, the site conceals further mysteries. Excavations have uncovered fragments of inscriptions, graffiti left by ancient visitors, and remnants of earlier structures buried under successive layers. Sigiriya was not simply constructed atop a blank canvas. It replaced an earlier monastery complex, suggesting the site held spiritual significance long before King Kasyapa arrived. Why this location? The choice cannot be purely defensive. Many natural formations in the region would have offered equal protection. There is a subtle suggestion that Sigiriya was chosen because of its position within the landscape, perhaps aligned with unseen energy lines, rivers, or vistas lost to our eyes. Some writers have speculated on more esoteric dimensions, powerful geomantic forces or sacred geometry encoded in the layout, though these ideas remain unproven. Even the construction itself contains anomalies. The rock's surface is notoriously hard, and carving terraces, stairways, and cisterns into it would have required immense effort. The precision with which stones were fitted, the symmetry of gardens at the base, and the durability of water channels suggest knowledge and techniques that challenge the understanding of standard 5th century engineering. Could it have been a collaboration of genius craftsmen whose methods were never recorded? Or is there a possibility that some of the techniques employed at Sigiriya were experimental or even borrowed from unknown cultures? Then there are the artifacts found scattered across the site, remnants of luxury items, beads, pottery, and fragments of metal tools. Some align neatly with known trade networks of the time, indicating connections across the Indian Ocean. Others are more enigmatic, unusual shapes, materials that do not easily correspond to known sources, leaving open questions about the extent of ancient travel and exchange. Were these objects purely functional, or did they serve a symbolic purpose, perhaps as offerings or protective talismans? And why do so many of them appear to vanish from historical record, leaving Sigiriya's summit largely silent after its abandonment? Even the decline of Sigiriya remains shrouded in uncertainty. Historical accounts suggest that after the king's death, the fortress was gradually abandoned, later becoming a Buddhist monastery, and then eventually left to the elements. Yet, the site's abandonment seems abrupt in the archaeological record, as if the hilltop suddenly lost its importance. Was it the political downfall of a single ruler? Or did a broader, less tangible factor render Sigiriya obsolete? Disease, social upheaval, changing religious practices? These are plausible, but they leave an unsatisfying void in the narrative. Some modern theorists suggest environmental changes may have altered water availability or undermined the garden's functionality, subtly nudging inhabitants to relocate. Others hint at the intangible. Perhaps the site, so strikingly artificial and monumental, was never meant to endure beyond a single generation, a fleeting statement of human ambition against the timeless backdrop of nature. Walking down from the summit, the air changes. The cliffs cast long shadows over the plains, and the geometry of the gardens becomes more apparent from above. The visitor is left with a mixture of awe and disquiet, caught between admiration for human ingenuity and the lingering sense that something fundamental about Sigiriya remains inscrutable. What prompted a king to carve his vision into such an inhospitable rock? How did the builders achieve such precision without leaving a detailed record? And, perhaps most intriguingly, what did those who inhabited or visited Sigiriya truly experience in ways that cannot be measured or reconstructed by modern science? Even today, centuries later, Sigiriya continues to invite speculation. Satellite imagery reveals patterns invisible at ground level, and subtle alignments in stone and water hint at knowledge lost to time. The frescoes still watch silently, the lion's paws still guard the ascent, and the summit remains a plateau of unanswered questions. For those who seek to understand, the site offers glimpses, clues, and fragments, but no definitive answers. The story of Sigiriya is not neatly contained in a. As the sun dips low over the arid expanse of Egypt's western desert, the stark, ochre-colored cliffs of the Gilf Kebir Plateau emerge from the heat-hazed horizon. From a distance, they appear as unbroken walls of stone, ancient and indifferent to the passage of time. And yet, hidden within these cliffs is a secret that has captivated explorers and archaeologists for nearly a century, the Cave of the Swimmers. Entering this remote alcove is like stepping across millennia from the present day into a world both familiar and utterly alien. The cave's mouth yawns just wide enough to admit a single beam of sunlight, illuminating the rough rock surface inside and revealing the first traces of its enigmatic artistry. Discovered in 1933 by the Hungarian explorer Laszlo Almasi, the Cave of the Swimmers immediately astonished those who saw it. On the walls, painted in deep red ochre, were figures, humans depicted in unusual poses, limbs outstretched, bodies floating horizontally across the stone. The most striking feature was the unmistakable impression of movement. These figures appeared to be swimming. Some lean forward, arms extended, legs bent as if kicking. Others are upright, arms raised, caught mid-stroke. It is, in essence, a snapshot of motion frozen in time, rendered thousands of years before photography or even written language as we know it. Radiocarbon dating and stylistic analysis suggest these paintings are approximately 10,000 years old, placing them in the African humid period, a time when the Sahara was not the desert we know today, but a vast savanna dotted with lakes and rivers. During this epoch, water flowed freely across the landscape, and life thrived, where now there is only sand. Scholars largely agree that the swimming figures may reflect humans moving through water in a landscape that no longer exists. And yet, even with this context, questions abound. How did early humans conceptualize and depict motion so convincingly? And why choose a cliff face, accessible only by difficult climbing and hidden from sight, as the canvas for this extraordinary expression? The cave itself is modest in size, roughly 10 meters across, but its walls are dense with imagery. Alongside the swimming figures are depictions of animals, giraffes, antelopes, and cattle, rendered in the same stark red ochre, yet in far more static poses. These images suggest a keen observation of the surrounding environment, a careful study of anatomy and behavior, even in a world without written records. The juxtaposition of stationary land animals and dynamic human swimmers is striking. It is as if the artists intended to capture two realities at once: the familiar rhythms of terrestrial life and a fleeting, almost impossible movement through water. As one studies the images, subtle details invite deeper reflection. Some human figures are elongated, disproportionately thin, or curiously angular. Heads are often mere circles atop sinuous torsos. Hands and feet are simplified, yet the overall motion remains undeniable. Could these exaggerations reflect artistic convention, or might they encode something else, a symbolic or ritualistic language we no longer understand? Anthropologists have debated whether the swimmers represent literal activities, like bathing, swimming, or traversing floodwaters, or whether they hold a more abstract significance, perhaps linked to spiritual beliefs or rites of passage. One of the enduring enigmas of the Cave of the Swimmers lies in its geography. The paintings occupy a high ledge, accessible only with effort. The ascent is treacherous, requiring skill and courage to navigate the uneven rock and steep approach. Why would early humans go to such lengths to place these images so far above the desert floor? Some researchers propose that the location was intentionally chosen for visibility from certain vantage points, or as part of a ritual process involving climbing as an act of devotion. Others speculate that the height served a protective function, shielding the paintings from human interference or the elements. Yet no one can fully explain why, of all possible surfaces, these artists selected this precise, secluded wall. The environmental context adds another layer of intrigue. The Sahara of 10,000 years ago was markedly different from today, yet even the most generous reconstructions cannot account for every detail. For instance, some figures appear to be swimming in what could be interpreted as standing water rather than flowing rivers. Were these depictions literal, reflecting ephemeral seasonal pools, or are they symbolic, representing a journey across unknown realms? Certain figures also seem to interact, forming clusters or sequences, suggesting that the paintings were not random, but part of a narrative or ceremonial sequence now lost to time. Fringe theories have occasionally emerged, hinting at even deeper mysteries. A few observers have suggested that the swimming figures bear unusual anatomical proportions or postures that do not correspond to ordinary human movement, implying that they might represent altered states of consciousness, mythological beings, or even extraterrestrial influence. While mainstream archaeology treats such ideas with skepticism, their persistence underscores the enduring fascination of the cave. The paintings resist complete interpretation, and it is precisely this resistance that gives them their power. They are simultaneously accessible and impenetrable, simple in form, yet infinitely complex in implication. Scientific analysis has attempted to clarify some of the mysteries. The pigments used in the paintings, natural ochres mixed with binders, demonstrate a surprising durability, remaining vibrant despite centuries of exposure to wind, temperature fluctuations, and the occasional flash flood. The artist's techniques suggest intentionality. The thickness of the lines, the layering of pigments, and even the placement of certain figures indicate a sophisticated understanding of how color and shape would be perceived by viewers. Such skill challenges assumptions about early human cognitive development and raises questions about the cultural and social structures that supported such artistic endeavors. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Cave of the Swimmers is the silence that surrounds it. Unlike other prehistoric sites, where clusters of habitation or burial grounds provide context, this cave offers little in the way of domestic evidence. There are no hearths, no obvious signs of long-term occupation, and no abundant tool fragments. It seems instead to exist primarily as a space for representation, for capturing a moment, a movement, or a vision. Was it a ceremonial site, a place of initiation, or an observatory for seasonal floods and changes? Or did it serve an entirely different purpose, now lost to memory? Modern explorers often describe a palpable sense of otherness upon entering the cave. The figures, though static, seem imbued with life. The swimming poses, so fluid and continuous, convey motion that is almost hypnotic. Some report an uncanny feeling of being watched, as if the ancient painters left behind not merely images, but an essence of themselves, a trace of consciousness that persists in the pigments and rock. It is a subtle effect, difficult to quantify, yet consistently noted by those who spend time observing the walls. Even the broader landscape resists easy explanation. The Gilf Kabir Plateau is remote, vast, and largely inhospitable today. Yet it harbors multiple prehistoric sites, suggesting that ancient humans flourished here far more extensively than the modern environment would imply. Water sources, now long vanished, once supported life across a sprawling savanna. How did early humans navigate such an expansive terrain, and what prompted them to concentrate artistic effort in such specific, elevated locations? And why, after the Sahara's gradual desiccation, did these sites fall into silence, leaving behind only faint traces of what was once a thriving human presence? As one lingers, examining the walls and imagining the world of 10,000 years ago, the Cave of the Swimmers becomes more than a set of paintings. It is a bridge across time, a window into a vanished reality. Each figure raises questions about daily life, about symbolic thought, about the intersection of environment, survival, and imagination. And yet, with every plausible explanation, new questions emerge. The swimmers remain frozen in motion, resisting definitive interpretation, while the desert beyond continues its slow, relentless transformation. Standing at the cave's mouth, gazing out across the sand and wind-sculpted cliffs, it is easy to feel the weight of both time and mystery. The images endure, silent witnesses to human creativity and curiosity, yet their full meaning remains elusive. Were they literal swimmers, mythic travelers, or symbolic mediators between earth and water, life and death? Did they convey knowledge, record memory, or express a spiritual longing now incomprehensible to modern eyes? And perhaps most provocatively, what other stories, hidden in rock and pigment, remain undiscovered across this vast, ancient desert? In the end, the Cave of the Swimmers is a paradox, both intimate and vast, familiar and alien. It invites contemplation, not only of the people who created it, but of the broader questions of human ingenuity, resilience, and imagination. Each visit, each careful observation, only deepens the sense that we are peering at something that will never fully yield its secrets, a testament to the enduring enigma of the past. And as the sun sinks lower, casting long shadows across the plateau, one is left with a quiet, persistent wonder. What else, just beyond reach, might still await, hidden within? Emerging from the windswept plains of Azerbaijan, the Gobustan landscape is at once barren and alive with echoes of the past. Jagged cliffs and rocky outcrops rise from the low scrubland, their surfaces pitted and weathered, each indentation whispering of millennia of wind, rain, and time. The air is dry, carrying the faint scent of salt from the nearby Caspian Sea, and the terrain stretches outward in gentle undulations, punctuated by occasional depressions that hint at long-vanished lakes. At first glance, the cliffs of Gobustan might seem unremarkable, just another outcrop in an ancient, sun-baked land. But for those who look closer, these rocks hold something extraordinary. A vast collection of petroglyphs etched and carved by humans thousands of years ago, depicting scenes both familiar and enigmatic. The rock art of Gobustan is staggering in its scope. Over 6,000 engravings cover more than 1,000 distinct rock surfaces, spanning a period from approximately 10,000 to 40,000 years ago. Figures of men and women, animals, and abstract symbols are intertwined across the stone, forming a visual tapestry of prehistoric life. The carvings are not merely static representations. They convey movement, interaction, and perhaps even narrative. Horses race across panels, hunters pursue prey with bows and spears, and dancers lift arms in patterns that suggest ritual or celebration. Among these images, some of the most striking are depictions of boats, with hulls and sails carefully delineated, a reminder that the people of Gobustan were not isolated, but part of a wider network of coastal and riverine communities. Yet even with centuries of study, Gobustan resists full explanation. Some images appear practical, documenting hunting techniques, animals, or tools. Others are less straightforward. Clusters of abstract symbols, concentric circles, spirals, and geometric shapes hint at belief systems, cosmology, or communication methods now lost. What did these signs mean to their creators? Were they records, warnings, maps, or something more symbolic, rituals carved in stone to influence the unseen world? Modern researchers can interpret the obvious, but the subtle language of these rocks eludes translation. The physicality of the site adds to its mystery. The engravings are located on cliffs, boulders, and slopes that often require careful climbing to access. The placement seems deliberate. Some petroglyphs are in shadowed alcoves, hidden from casual view, while others are prominently displayed, visible from distance or along ancient pathways. Could their creators have been encoding messages intended for specific audiences? Or were certain carvings meant to be discovered only under particular light, at a particular season, or during ritual observances? The interplay between environment and art suggests a sophisticated understanding of space, visibility, and perhaps even celestial alignment. Animals dominate much of Gobustan's imagery, reflecting the close relationship between humans and the fauna that sustained them. Reindeer, aurochs, gazelles, and ibex appear frequently, often in dynamic poses that capture the essence of motion. Hunters are depicted stalking prey, wielding spears, bows, and clubs with precision. But within this apparent realism lie anomalies. Some animals are exaggerated in scale, others are abstracted or merged with geometric symbols. Were these deliberate distortions meant to convey spiritual significance, myth, or clan identity? Could they represent not literal creatures, but ancestral spirits or mythic hybrids, bridging the gap between the human and natural worlds? Equally intriguing are the human figures themselves. Many are engaged in activities that are immediately recognizable, hunting, dancing, or tending to domestic tasks, yet their proportions, gestures, and interactions often carry an uncanny quality. Some figures appear elongated, arms and legs outstretched in ways that defy ordinary anatomy. Groups of people are arranged in sequences that suggest ritual choreography or ceremonial procession. In certain panels, small, repeated motifs cluster around larger central figures, hinting at a symbolic hierarchy or storytelling system that modern viewers can only partially decode. Gobustan's petroglyphs are not confined to one era or one group of people. Analysis shows that the site was revisited repeatedly over millennia, with successive waves of human activity leaving layers of carvings atop or alongside earlier images. This temporal layering creates a palimpsest effect, where the art of one generation intersects with that of another, producing visual echoes across time. It raises questions about continuity and cultural memory. What traditions, beliefs, or knowledge were transmitted here, preserved in stone even as the surrounding environment changed dramatically? The landscape itself offers both context and contradiction. Today, Gobustan is arid, sparsely vegetated, and harsh, yet evidence from paleo-environmental studies indicates that it was once greener, with more abundant water sources supporting diverse plant and animal life. Seasonal floods, lakes, and rivers may have nourished the communities whose hands etched these images. And yet, even in a wetter climate, the scale, precision, and thematic consistency of the petroglyphs are remarkable. How did these early artists organize such extensive projects, ensure their continuity over generations, and imbue them with meaning that transcended time and circumstance? Modern science has revealed some surprising features. Microscopic analysis of tool marks shows that the carvings were made with precision instruments, and repeated passes suggest a methodical approach to engraving that goes beyond casual decoration. Some scholars propose that Gobustan functioned as a central hub for social, spiritual, or economic activity, a meeting place for dispersed groups who gathered to share knowledge, celebrate seasonal cycles, or perform rituals. Yet the full scope of its purpose remains speculative, and the more one examines the site, the more it hints at unseen dimensions, coded messages, or symbolic knowledge lost to millennia. Fringe theories occasionally emerge, reflecting the enigmatic quality of Gobustan. Some observers note that certain motifs resemble abstract maps, celestial charts, or even star constellations, hinting at early astronomical observation. Others suggest that repeated geometric forms could indicate proto-writing systems, a visual language predating formal scripts by thousands of years. While mainstream archaeology remains cautious, these interpretations underscore the site's capacity to provoke wonder, inviting us to imagine human intellect and imagination operating at a level we have yet to fully comprehend. What is most compelling, however, is the dialogue between the past and present that Gobustan facilitates. Visitors to the cliffs often report a profound sense of connection, a quiet awareness that these rocks were touched by countless hands, each leaving a trace of thought, skill, and intention. The carvings do not merely depict, they engage. The figures and symbols draw the eye along natural contours, guiding the observer across time and space. In this way, Gobustan becomes a living archive, a record not only of prehistoric life, but of human curiosity, perception, and expression. Even as the modern observer tries to reconstruct the past, the cliffs retain their secrets. Certain panels remain partially obscured, eroded, or hidden in shadow, hinting at images lost to centuries of wind, rain, and human neglect. Others provoke questions without offering answers. What rituals were performed here? What stories were told? What knowledge transmitted? And what messages intentionally obscured or encoded? The interplay of clarity and ambiguity is striking, emphasizing that the site was never meant to be fully understood by outsiders, and perhaps was never meant to reveal its full significance at all. As the sun sinks toward the Caspian horizon, casting long shadows over the weathered stones, one is left with a sense of humility. Gobustan is a testament to human ingenuity and creativity, yet it is also a reminder of the limits of understanding. For every explanation offered by archaeologists and historians, new questions emerge. Each etched figure, each spiral or geometric form, is a fragment of a much larger narrative, one that spans thousands of years and countless human experiences, yet remains tantalizingly incomplete. Standing among the cliffs, tracing the contours of carved limbs and flowing lines, it is impossible not to feel the weight of time pressing softly but insistently. These rocks are more than art. They are a dialogue, a record of what humans have seen, believed, and imagined, and yet their full meaning is inaccessible, suspended in a delicate balance between interpretation and mystery. What did these ancient hands intend to convey? What knowledge, ritual, or memory did they seek to preserve for the future? And perhaps most hauntingly, what else might be hidden here? Images, symbols, stories that have yet to be discovered, lying silently beneath layers of stone, waiting for someone patient and perceptive enough to see? Gobustan reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, at least not fully. They endure in the interplay between evidence and imagination, between the observer and the observed. And as the shadows lengthen and the wind whispers across the cliffs, one is left with the quiet, persistent wonder that has drawn generations to this place. What else, just beyond reach, continues to speak across the millennia, waiting for us to notice, interpret, or perhaps simply marvel? On the windswept plains of southern Sweden, near the quiet village of Blomsholm, the landscape stretches open and unassuming punctuated by low ridges, pastures, and patches of heath. At first glance, it seems like any other rural expanse in Scandinavia, timeless, serene, and deceptively simple. Yet, upon closer inspection, the earth itself reveals traces of something extraordinary. A stone ship, its outline etched in granite and standing sentinel for over a millennium. From above, the monument takes the unmistakable shape of a vessel, a long, slender hull composed of massive stones, its prow and stern subtly curved, as though frozen in mid-sail across an invisible sea of grass. The Blomsholm stone ship is vast, measuring roughly 67 meters in length and 9 meters across. Each stone, carefully placed, forms a deliberate pattern, suggesting more than mere decoration. Archaeologists date the structure to the Nordic Bronze Age, approximately between 1000 and 500 BCE, yet its construction raises questions that defy easy explanation. How were such enormous stones transported and aligned with such precision in a period without metal tools or advanced machinery? And why choose a ship as the form for a monument when so many other Bronze Age memorials favor tumuli, circles, or linear arrangements? The ship motif is pervasive throughout Scandinavia, appearing in stone arrangements from Denmark to Norway. Yet Blomsholm is among the largest and most complete. Scholars generally interpret stone ships as ritualistic or funerary monuments, symbols intended to carry the deceased across the boundary between life and death, a journey to the afterlife envisioned as a voyage across cosmic waters. Excavations near the site have revealed remnants of cremation burials, charcoal, and occasional artifacts supporting this theory. Still, Blomsholm stands as something more than a tomb. It is an elaborate architectural statement, its sheer scale suggesting communal effort, ceremonial significance, and a worldview that intertwined earth, sea, and sky. Approaching the monument today, one notices subtle details that might otherwise be overlooked. The stones vary in size. Massive boulders form the outer edges, while smaller rocks fill interior lines. Some stones bear grooves and irregularities that hint at shaping or modification, though the methods remain speculative. The alignment is remarkably straight, yet the slight curvature at bow and stern conveys motion, a suggestion that the ship is not merely a static object, but a vessel poised for an eternal journey. Standing at either end, the eye is drawn along its length, as if the structure itself channels a narrative across time. Beyond the funerary explanation, deeper enigmas emerge. Why was the ship oriented as it is? Some researchers note that Blomsholm's alignment roughly corresponds with certain solar or lunar events, suggesting the builders were marking celestial patterns, encoding astronomical knowledge in stone. Could the ship have been designed to function simultaneously as a calendar, a ceremonial site, and a memorial? And if so, what knowledge or ritual significance was intended to endure across generations? These questions are compounded by the lack of contemporary written records. We see only the stones, meticulously arranged, yet the voices of those who placed them remain silent. The context of the surrounding landscape amplifies the mystery. The monument sits amidst an area rich in prehistoric activity. Burial mounds, ritual stones, and smaller stone ships are scattered within a radius of several kilometers. This concentration hints at a sacred or communal complex, a landscape carefully curated for meaning and memory. Yet Blomsholm stands apart in its monumental scale, suggesting it may have served a particularly significant role, perhaps the burial of a leader, a clan chieftain, or a figure of spiritual importance. And yet, without definitive grave goods or inscriptions, certainty remains elusive. Some features of Blomsholm resist conventional explanation. For example, a series of smaller stones extends outward from the main structure, forming radiating lines or pathways. Were these functional, guiding participants during rituals, or symbolic, representing the ripples of influence from the individual interred within? Elsewhere, depressions in the soil hint at wooden structures or markers that have long since decayed, raising the possibility that the monument was once part of a larger, integrated ceremonial space. Could the ship have been accompanied by temporary structures, offerings, or processional routes, all now invisible to modern eyes? Fringe theories, though not mainstream, have long been associated with stone ships like Blomsholm. Some suggest the arrangement reflects advanced knowledge of geometry, surveying, or even astronomy beyond what is typically attributed to Bronze Age Scandinavia. Others speculate that the site encodes symbolic or mythological narratives, perhaps depicting voyages described in oral tradition or cosmological journeys now lost. Some enthusiasts have drawn parallels between stone ships and later Norse mythology, seeing in Blomsholm and similar sites echoes of the cosmic ship Naglfar, or the journey of the dead across the sea to Valhalla. While these ideas cannot be confirmed, they underscore the monument's power to provoke imagination, bridging archaeology and human storytelling across centuries. The physical construction of Blomsholm is itself a marvel. Moving stones of such mass would have required coordinated labor, ingenuity, and planning. Did the builders rely on sledges, rollers, ropes, or other techniques now largely speculative? The precision of alignment suggests careful measurement, a concept of proportion and balance that speaks to cognitive sophistication. And yet, we are left to imagine the lives of those who labored here, the ritual chants, the planning, the communal effort invested in shaping stone into a vessel that would outlast individual lifetimes and even civilizations. Even as the monument endures, nature continues its slow reclamation. Grass and moss creep over the stones, wind and rain erode edges, and centuries of frost have subtly shifted the alignment of smaller rocks. Yet Blomsholm's outline remains unmistakable, a testament to the durability of human intent carved in stone. Visiting the site, one feels the tension between permanence and impermanence, the interplay of time, memory, and mortality that the original builders may have sought to convey. The symbolism of the ship resonates beyond the immediate Bronze Age context. Across cultures, the ship is a vessel of transition, a mediator between worlds, a vehicle of journey and transformation. Blomsholm captures this archetypal motif with striking clarity, yet without words or explicit explanation. The monument communicates visually, spatially, and symbolically, leaving observers to interpret, speculate, and wonder. Could it represent a literal journey over water, a spiritual passage, or an allegorical voyage into the unknown? Or might it have encompassed multiple meanings simultaneously, layered and nuanced in ways modern scholarship can only approximate? Standing along the edge of the stone ship, tracing its length with the eye, it is possible to sense the human presence behind the stones. Though the voices of the builders are lost to time, their intentions endure in shape, proportion, and placement. The monument speaks not in language, but in geometry, scale, and symbolism. It is a message across millennia, a reminder that Bronze Age societies were capable of extraordinary technical, artistic, and conceptual achievement, yet also that much of their worldview remains inaccessible, suspended in the mystery of stone and earth. Perhaps the most compelling question is why Blomsholm, and stone ships in general, persist as monuments when so much else has vanished. Why does the human impulse to memorialize take this specific, enduring form? And what stories, rituals, or knowledge might have accompanied these stones, now lost to decay, weathering, and time? For centuries, observers have tried to reconstruct the narrative, to understand the intentions and beliefs of those who raised the monument, yet the full answer remains tantalizingly out of reach. As the sun casts long shadows across the flat plains of Blomsholm, the silhouette of the ship becomes more pronounced, its outline floating over the earth like a vessel poised for a journey it will never take. the stones themselves remain silent, yet they invite reflection, imagination, and contemplation. What did the builders hope to convey to their contemporaries, or to those who would come thousands of years later? And beyond the visible stones, might there be hidden elements, ritual objects, organic structures, or even symbolic patterns in the landscape that have yet to be discovered, waiting to illuminate the full meaning of this remarkable monument? In the quiet stillness of Blomsholm, one is reminded that some mysteries endure precisely because they were designed to transcend a single generation, a single lifetime, or even a single understanding. The stone ship remains a bridge across time, linking us to a distant past of ritual, community, and imagination. And as we walk along its length, tracing the lines of granite that have weathered millennia, we are left with the profound, unanswerable question that has drawn observers for centuries. What else, invisible to the eye, continues to lie encoded within these stones, awaiting discovery, interpretation, or perhaps simply silent contemplation?